And I want to start off as the co-chairperson. My name is Cedric Frolic. I'm from the National Assembly, the House chairperson there. My colleague, the Honorable Nyambi, is busy at the moment with other responsibilities, so you won't be here. But we have members from both houses that are present. I want to submit an apology to our hosts and to the officials who were here since 9 o'clock already, that there was an unexpected event that we had to attend to this morning. As all of us know, there was a tornado that struck some areas of eThekwini. Thank God there's no major loss of life. There's one person that's missing and assumed dead. And then there's 2 injuries. We come now from that site in Inanda. We were received by the mayor, the MEC of Kokta, as well as the Premier who also joined. And we went with the Minister of Human Settlements and the Deputy Minister. All of them are in the province. And it just so happened that we are also here. And that is the nature of disasters as how it occurs. Nature do not ask for permission when it wants to act in a particular way, and we call it, the scientists call it, letting off steam. It's letting off steam because of a lot of human activity that is taking place now. The bad thing about this occurrence yesterday is that it follows hot on the heels of the disaster of flooding that occurred last year. And we are here actually to get an update on what interventions the government and the responsible agencies have taken to alleviate the plight of our people in those areas that are affected. Our experience also tells us, honourable members, that in the Eastern Cape, as well as Northwest, where we previously have been, is that our people will tell you about other disasters that happened years ago. So you have disaster that happened, and then there's some effort or no effort made to address that years ago, and the people just carry on living like that. And then there's another disaster, and another disaster, and another disaster. And the angst and fear of our people is as soon as a new disaster happens, all the attention focused there, and the others remain left behind. And we surely cannot afford that. So the interaction this morning, since it's not our first visit, is to get an update. And I've been requested by the Premier. She indicated that there's a DDG from our office who will give that input. The province is hosting the Minister of Human Settlements. They are going now on their way to hand over a human settlement project that served to provide permanent housing now to those who were affected during the floods. But as we were there, they had to do an assessment of how many people are affected now again and who require either resettlement or repairs that needs to be done. So it's a revolving process. It evolves all the time, and it becomes a moving target, really. The good thing is that the Minister of Human Settlements informed me that they have reconfigured government at national level. And it's her department's direct responsibility, without bypassing the local government and the province, to intervene directly from national government level. And honourable members can recall that is what we asked for. We said you can't have a national government that sits in Pretoria, and here at local government level or at provincial government level, they either don't have the capacity, or the response is very slow and lethargic, or there's a lack of political will to urgently address the need of our people. You see, when there is interventions taking place and delivery taking place, or what must happen, people on the ground don't ask Honourable Schlengwa, which sphere of government are you from? Let's just wait for these who arrive now. They're disrupting my meeting. They must take their seats. Welcome, Deputy Mayor Vitekweni. Unfortunately, we couldn't wait any longer because we were supposed to be at 9 o'clock this morning, but we had to go somewhere else. But thank you, thanks for arriving. So that process of the handing over of housing units is taking place as we are speaking here. And the province is expecting the president on Friday, who's also doing a follow-up visit on matters related to the last disaster that occurred, but also other matters that affect the province of KwaZulu-Natal. What I will do is that when we get to the round of interaction from the members of parliament, I'll allow them to introduce themselves. Right? We are not going to do those introductions now. And the presenters also, as you are lined up to present, you'll quickly introduce yourself, where you're from, so that we can get into the business of today. The program, honourable members, is then slightly adjusted that we'll stay here until lunchtime, have lunch here, and after lunch we'll move and do the site visits as originally indicated on the program. Is there any comment from the members? None? I now want to hand over to the Office of the Premier, the DDG. Over to you, sir, or lady. There's somebody from the Office of the Premier. Don't look at one another. The one who's supposed to do the presentation, come and do it. Okay, the staff from the Office of the Premier is still on their way. Where's Nola? Yeah. Nola, can you just come here, please? They want to check if their documents have been loaded. We'll start with Kokta. Kokta say they are ready to present. Okay. Now we know now the Office of the Premier is not here. There's only three. Kokta, Office of the Premier, Tikweni, and then we'll have the Umgeni Water Board. They are here. They are our hosts for this morning. So Kokta, when you are ready and your presentation is loaded, you will start. And you can introduce who you are and whoever is with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Apologies for the confusion. I'm from KZN Kokta. My name is Barbara Mkuchini. I'm the DDG for Development and Planning. Apologies, I'm still trying to catch my breath after the visit to Amawoti. So the team is trying to help me with the presentation. And good morning once again. We've got a consolidated presentation that incorporates umsebenzi waka provincial government, including Omaspala. So it's a consolidated presentation that talks to both the interventions that we provided as the government of KwaZulu-Natal, including all the municipalities. The presentation was circulated to all the members, I'm hoping. So we'll just go through, firstly, to indicate where we are in terms of the recovery plans for the missing people, and also to indicate where we are in terms of the various interventions by the sector departments. So the structure of the presentation will first allude to the recovery process, the interventions by the Department of Social Development in the various emergency residential units, as well as the psychosocial support that the Department of Social Development is providing. We'll then move on to indicate the grants that have been provided by the National Department through DCOC, our mother body, through the National Disaster Management Center. And in there, we'll then outline what was allocated to which municipality and to what extent we have spent those grants. That will also indicate the work that has been done by the provincial government, starting with all the sector departments from your transport, including human settlements, the issue of TRUs, and we'll also get to cover the work that was done by the AG and our response measures in terms of the issues that were raised by the AG in the presentations that they made to the members of the Ad Hoc Committee. Unfortunately, we don't have a comprehensive report in terms of the...
My apologies for interrupting. There is noise coming from people outside. Please tell them to keep quiet and to move away from the side, please, because we can hear everything they're saying.
Okay. Thank you. I think there's a reasonable attention to the issues of sound. We apologize again for that. I did indicate we'll then cover the various sector departments and also the issues of the AG, and we'll indicate to the members of the Ad Hoc Committee the challenges and the mitigations, and also provide some overall recommendations in terms of what we need to do moving forward. I'll just give a reminder to the honourable members in terms of the coverage of the disasters that we had. The whole province was affected, but mostly it's those that are in red that were severely affected. Unfortunately, our screen is small. I was hoping there would be 2 screens and something closer, but if you have the copies, I'm sure you'll be able to make reference. But we're indicating the severity of the disaster was mainly felt along the coastal municipalities, and then with minimal damage in the Uthugela, Umzinyati and Umgungundlovu district. Nothing much was reported in Umkhanyakude, Zululand, Amajuba, and Herigwala, so we didn't put our efforts in terms of supporting those municipalities since they were not included even in the application that we made to National Treasury for the declaration and the support thereof. We also need to remind members that in terms of this disaster, we had over 17 billion damages to public infrastructure. We didn't get 17 billion in terms of the recovery plan, but at least we got some startup capital to be able to respond to the challenges that we're facing on the ground. And this disaster in itself was one of its kind. The magnitude was beyond every sector's capability in terms of response. A reminder again in terms of the response approach from government, the 3 phases that we normally implement when we have a disaster. Firstly is the immediate humanitarian support, where we support those and try to recover the basic and meet the basic needs, and then followed by the recovery in terms of stabilization and rehousing the people that have lost their homes and restoring the provision of services. And this is where you get your initial emergency relief grant and the reprioritization of the funding that you have as sectors. And then thirdly is the focus on the rehabilitation and reconstruction, where you would now be trying to build back better. And this is the phase 3 in terms of our recovery processes. And this normally takes longer. And in these grants, you can be given more than 6 months to implement. But for phase 2, which is the stabilization and recovery, normally the grants that are issued then should be spent within 6 months of allocation. Moving on to the issues of security and safety, we are indicating the deceased in terms of the total. The report from our SAPS, we had a total of 455 deceased, rescued alive 251, missing persons 67, and we still have 25 unclaimed bodies at the mortuaries. This is in terms of SAPS. There might be some disjuncture in terms of whether these bodies are from the direct floods, but in terms of the Department of Health, they are indicating they have 19 bodies in their 2 mortuaries which are related to the floods. We are also indicating the total number of households that were affected and also those that were partially destroyed. We are indicating the sectors that were badly affected, human settlements being the highest, agriculture, education, transport, social development, as well as organs of state, which include your ESCOM, your Transnet, Ezemvelo, Itala buildings, and we are also indicating the districts that were affected. I did allude to the bodies at the mortuaries, and there are 19 in terms of the reports that we received from Department of Health, and that's the breakdown in terms of where they are, and the two mortuaries being Pinetown and Phoenix, and the breakdown as it stands. There were issues around DNA testing in terms of those bodies that are still at the lab, and we believe samples have been taken and stored at the forensic lab in Pretoria. We have a team that has been put together to assist in terms of the DNA matching, and in the past 3 months they've managed to successfully match 6 bodies, but there is a team led by the Department of Health and SAPS that are working on this. We also need to indicate some of the bodies were too decomposed, and therefore the identification process became a bit difficult. The Department of Justice, the police investigators, as well as the forensic units are working tirelessly to assist. In the last meeting, I think there was an issue around the presumption of death in terms of those that are missing, and we know they might unfortunately not be recovered. The Department of Justice has indicated that in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, they only do this presumption of death after 7 years has lapsed. So that presents a challenge in terms of closure by the families who lost their beloved ones. And that is the reason why we are continuing in terms of issues of psychosocial support, and also ensuring that this team led by the Magistrate Ngubane continue to hold monthly meetings to get updates in terms of the recovery of those bodies and also the presumption of death. Moving on to social development, we are indicating the work that the social workers are doing in terms of supporting, or that they did in terms of supporting post-floods. 387 social service professionals were deployed to support in terms of the social work interventions for the victims. And from National Department, we received a budget of 17.2 million, which was mainly for the employment of additional social workers to assist, and this was from 1st of November up until the 1st of March. So the intended outcome, we hope it was achieved as we managed to support the victims in various ways. A total of 27,000 beneficiaries were reached out, and again, there were comprehensive assessments held, and 1,003 beneficiaries were exposed to counseling for trauma and grief support, and we also have about 692 cases that continue to receive support. Critical issues were also reported in those areas that are highlighted, and as the Department of Social Development, they continue to provide the support that is required. You will note in the report we have a list of the missing flood victims and the interventions that were provided by DSD. We have blocked the names of the deceased, but we've also indicated the ages and the gender, as well as the support that has been provided to those missing persons, both as a joint initiative by the municipality, as well as by DSD and Department of Health. And that includes your psychosocial support, trauma counseling, bereavement support, and also issuing of SRDs. And families were also allocated the RDP housing. In some cases, social workers linked those affected to other programs that are underway. So this is listed for all in the slides for the 44 that have been reached out. As part of the next steps, the DSD and Department of Human Settlements are continuing with the support to the victims. And the continuous support is also indicated, where we are indicating the allocation of 39 social workers in the province to the various temporary residential accommodation areas to support, and that's the breakdown that we have in the template. We are also indicating the continuous support and the continuous meetings that are taking place for trauma counseling to show that we've not forgotten these victims of floods. Work is continuing, and as government we are doing our best. Consolidated report in terms of the grants that we received from National, we are indicating the transfer dates for those grants. 28 June was the initial transfer to about 5 municipalities or 4 districts, Ugu, Umgungundlovu, Ilembe and Uthukela. The next tranche was transferred on the 28th of July 2022, covering Ugu, Uthukela and Ilembe. And the last tranche in terms of the municipal recovery grants was transferred to eThekwini on the 6th of September 2022, and those are the amounts, and that's the total of 406 million that was allocated for municipalities in terms of the recovery plans for the emergency. If you'd recall that those tables with 3 rectangles is for the emergency repairs that were required for the affected. Moving on, we're indicating the allocation for the reconstruction and recovery, and in this case we are also indicating the expenditure levels. You'd note in this case we are indicating the number of approved projects per municipality, as well as the allocation and the expenditure to date for the new allocation for the reconstruction, and this was transferred in March 2023, and municipalities had to go through their procurement processes for this reconstruction grant. I'm indicating there, starting with eThekwini, their current expenditure. This expenditure increases as time moves on, so you may have received a report from the AG showing different expenditure levels as of March. There has been an increase in terms of the expenditure. For eThekwini, the grant was allocated to roads and stormwater, to issues of water and sanitation. That's the breakdown of the 185 million, and the expenditure which was sitting at 116 at the time of compilation of this report, and invoices are still flowing through, and we are also indicating the expenditure in terms of that grant. We are also indicating again the detailed expenditure for water and sanitation, which was our main concern due to initially in the slow expenditure, and we are indicating where they are now in that particular phase of the development. Moving on, we are also indicating some of the projects where they requested extension of time up to June, which was granted because of the circumstances surrounding those projects. And the NDMC flew in, assessed those projects, and the extension of time was granted to the municipality. The municipality also requested a reallocation of some of their grants based on the fact that some projects had already been implemented using their internal allocations by the time the grants were allocated. And in some cases, some projects ended up either under budgeted or over budgeted, so they had to play around with the allocation to be able to move funding from one project to another to meet the obligations that we had. So there were savings in some projects, but there were also required additional funding in some of the projects, and we are indicating that in the document. We are also indicating the issues of the beaches and the rivers that were contaminated, indicating also the pump stations and the wastewater treatment works that were causing those challenges, and we are also indicating the status in terms of whether those have been resolved and where there is still work in progress. We are indicating that as well, and indicating the dates where work is scheduled to be completed or where work has been completed. eThekwini, as I've indicated, they also had to do a revised implementation plan because of the reallocations of the grants based on savings, and we are also indicating those projects where they had to reallocate, and those projects that had to be moved from emergency funding to reconstruction because they needed more time, and they now needed to go through the full tender process and the pre-audits that are required. I will not go through each of the projects, but this is just to give members a sense of where we are in terms of the storm damages and the reallocations that may have caused some delays in terms of implementation. We are also indicating sanitation in terms of the completed projects and also the expenditure levels for some of those projects under the sanitation. Sewer repairs that have been completed to date, we are also indicating those in the presentation. Moving on, I will not go through each of these, but since members are in the province, I think it's also fair that we also give them an indication in terms of the sanitation pump station operations and maintenance, and also the number of pump stations that were vandalized and those that were also affected by the floods, which resulted in the flow of sewer into the river systems and into the oceans. 263 pump stations in total, and of these we're indicating the numbers that have been catered for, the number of pumps that are not working, and per region, and also indicating how then the work is going to be allocated for the repairs. 16 of these repairs are in progress, and 84 of these the repairs have been completed. The municipality is in this meeting. If there is any follow-up questions regarding the issues of repairs of these pump stations, they are here to respond, but we are indicating per area from the north, indicating what has been completed and what is still ongoing. You can see there is a lot of work that has taken place, either through internal funding or through the grants to address the issues of the refurbishment of these wastewater treatment works and the maintenance thereof. Moving on again for the reconstruction, the 1.5 odd billion that has been allocated in March 2023, we are also indicating how it has been allocated. For eThekwini water, there is 115 million, for sanitation 123 million, roads and stormwater maintenance 242, roads provision 371, coastal and stormwater catchment management 626 million, and for housing it's 94 million. And these projects work is now underway in terms of SCM processes. As I indicated, we still have to go through a full tender or utilizing framework contracts that are in place. And in some cases, you get those tenders, either there are challenges in terms of issuing of those tenders that leads to delays in terms of actual implementation. But there is clear indication of where we are, where SCM has been completed and where we are still at BAC stage, noting that these funds were transferred in March 2023. We are also indicating the nature of the work, what has been completed, and their pictorial indications of the start and the before picture, as well as the progress to date for some of the projects. I will not go through in detail, but just to indicate, and members can read at their leisure in terms of where we are, just to also show you the magnitude of the damages and the work that is required, which in some cases could not be done in 6 months, and hence the public outcry to say we still have areas that we have not reached out. It's work in progress, and once the 1.5 million tenders are all allocated, we should be able to address most of the areas where we have challenges. You'd also note, members, that in most cases there is a lot of gabion protection that is required, and we are also indicating that nature of work, and in this nature of work we use local laborers, and we are also creating employment in the process. The issue of Tongaat, I'm sure there would be a separate presentation by Umgeni Water in terms of the Tongaat treatment works, but safe to say that the part that the municipality was responsible for has been completed 100%, and as committed, the restoration of food supply was done by the 15th of November. We still have challenges in Tongaat, demand exceeds supply, and there are also maintenance issues due to the pressure in the system, and we have aged infrastructure. This is the reason why we keep getting calls from the communities of Tongaat in terms of the issues of water and the challenges that they have. Yet work was completed in the restoration of the infrastructure. Members, I think it would be fair for us to also give you an indication in terms of other municipalities outside eThekwini, although we are in eThekwini, but just at a high level, we are indicating the municipal disaster recovery grant for Inkosilanga Libalele. They have completed most of their projects. They are at 100%. And in cases where they have not spent fully, there is retention monies that they are holding before they transfer. Nkosilanga Libalele also had some savings in their projects, and these have been reallocated based on the approvals that we received from the National Disaster Management Center. We are indicating the projects that they were focusing on, the installation of handrails, Kolita Bridge, the reconstruction of that bridge work has been completed. Again, Langalibalele for the reconstruction grant received in March. They are also indicating the progress in terms of implementation, and they are sitting at 26% in terms of that reconstruction grant of 76 million that they received. Alfred Duma, in terms of the R&R grant, we're also indicating the expenditure levels. Also, safe to say, appointments have been done and designs are underway in most of the projects, and they are beginning to show expenditure. We are also indicating there the before and after picture to also demonstrate that sites have been established, contractors have moved on site, and work is now progressing. Mkambatini in Umgungundlovu, they've also completed all their projects, and we are also indicating there the nature of work that that was involved. Ilembe district, again, completed, and we are also indicating the before and after in terms of the work that they did. Renkonyeni, again, that's the same picture in terms of where they are. I need to indicate that the National Disaster Management Center has been to the province to assess some of these projects to see whether the municipality complied with the provisions of the grant, and also to be certain that indeed the grant is being utilized for the purposes that it was allocated for. So we are indicating there the head of the National Disaster Management Center, Dr. Sitole, with his team, visiting the various areas to just check if indeed there is impact and value for money on the work done. I must say the value for money is a difficult exercise, and it requires the experts in the field to also check, and it's work that we are continuously going to improve on moving forward, noting that for emergency purposes, in some cases, some contractors took advantage of municipalities' lack of technical capacity. In some of the areas we found that there was a bit of some shoddiness in terms of the work that we found on the ground. And fortunately, there is still retention monies that are being held, and we will be able to go back to some of the work that was done to ensure that we get the value for money that we expected. Lessons learned in terms of the infrastructure assessments. At times, the project value was not clearly defined, and the breakdown of work was not clearly undertaken. And this is the reason why, in some cases, we have savings on the projects, and in some cases, we now need to reallocate the funding. Some municipalities, of course, had challenges in terms of explaining or sitting within the limitations of the grant funding, and in some cases, we had lack of maintenance plans in municipalities, and it's work that we now have to take on as COCTA, MISA, and DCOC, as well as DWS, to ensure that municipalities have maintenance plans, so that when disaster strikes, we don't then lump issues of maintenance with the issues of disaster management. We also then are continuously improving on that. Moving on to the other organs of state outside municipalities, we are indicating the restoration work that was done at the port operations, and that has since been completed using their CAPEX allocation and reprioritization of the grants. You'd recall, members, that we had challenges at the port, the Bayhead Road restoration that has been completed, and we are showing the pictures before and also the pictures after in terms of the restoration, Bayhead Road, the Bayhead Canal restoration, as well as the Bayhead Park, the Bremen Road, and the extent of the damages that we faced, as well as the completed work by October, utilizing the reprioritization of their own budget as Transnet in the municipality. Etia, in terms of their interventions, They've issued a call for funding at a business relief support fund, and this closed in February, and assessments are underway. We have captured the applications, and we're just indicating the split in terms of the applications per municipality. We are also indicating that as it stands, the ATIA is assessing and capturing and screening the applications that were received, with the hope that disbursements will take place from October to November. And this is a special allocation. As much as other national departments had allocated, they saw a gap in the system, and ATIA has decided to then come up with additional interventions to address the victims of floods. Human settlements, they rearranged their response instruments from what was there initially. You can see there were new facilities that came up as a response to the disaster. Transitional emergency accommodation was never catered for before. Rental assistance scheme was never catered for before. We can therefore say, as much as we had this disaster affecting people, but it also assisted in terms of us rethinking our disaster support and also coming up with innovative ideas of what we can do to address the challenges that we face, and hence the reason why human settlements came up with those interventions to complement the provision of temporary residential units, the issue of building material supply, as well as the permanent housing that we have. We are indicating again the breakdown in terms of the funding that was allocated to human settlements, a total of 342 million, and to date they've spent 318 million, which is 93% of the allocation. We are also indicating the TRIU's program that they were implementing, and we are indicating in there that a total of 1,766 TRIUs were delivered to the province, and we are also indicating the breakdown of where those TRIUs were. The issues of building material supply, we are also indicating that a total of 567 families were allocated building materials. Some refused the building materials because they didn't want to go back to their original sites. And this is the reason why in some cases the AG then found building material lying around. It's a matter that the municipality is also following up to ensure that they address as part of their audit improvement strategy. Department of Human Settlements also received donor funding to the tune of 2.2 million, and we are indicating in there the breakdown and what that donor support was utilized for, and that includes the 300 single beds that were provided by Vodacom. Mass care centers, as committed by the provincial government, these were closed by December. 24 December, we didn't have anyone in mass care centers or shelters, all were closed, and that's the breakdown. And when these mass care centers were closed, either by moving people to emergency accommodation or giving them building material or taking them back to their original places. We are also indicating the distribution and duration of the TAs in terms of human settlements, and also indicating that we had interventions that were done by various role players within the human settlement sector. At eThekwini Metro, we are indicating the trans-emergency accommodation provision that they made. We are also indicating Housing Development Agency, ITALA as the funds administrator for the KZN human settlements. We are also indicating the areas where they are provided least accommodation and the number of beds, as well as the contract sum covering the 2,574 beds, as well as the 161 million that was committed towards this program. These are the pictures showing the transitional emergency accommodation of Flaherty, Astor Building, and so forth, all the way to Adams Mission Building. We are also indicating a linkage between the temporary emergency housing and the land parcels that we've identified to show that as much as we've provided emergency accommodation, work is still underway to ensure there is a permanent solution for the provision of housing for those that are affected. Land has been identified, is being packaged through your EIAs, your SPLUMA applications, and we are hoping then by next year we should be able to finalize the provision of permanent housing for those that are accommodated in different areas. The print may be small, but it's just to demonstrate that we have detailed planning, we have EIA authorizations in terms of human settlements. We are also documenting the lessons learned in terms of the human settlements. Human settlements established a war room that was meeting on a weekly basis to address the issues of human settlements. And that war room had all the sector role players as well as the affected councillors. And in some cases, we also had municipalities coming in to come up with new proposals on how we can respond to the issues of human settlement. So we are documenting those lessons which will then assist us moving forward as we consider new approaches to the support that we provide to our communities during a disaster. I will not go through all the lessons learned. Members can also read at their own time, but also to emphasize the challenges that we faced in terms of real-time audits that also led to some of the delays that we are facing. We are not saying real-time audits are bad, but at times the timing was not working in terms of the speedy responses that were expected by the communities. When you say we are still waiting now for the real-time audit to take place before we can issue a tender or before we can implement, the communities on the ground could not understand. But it also gave us some rethinking in terms of human settlements and the issues of migration, the issues of the South African geopolitics, as well as the issues of urban governance that we now need to deal with as we move forward, and the unresolved issue of the land, especially in the urban areas where all land is either privately owned or occupied, and communities that are coming to look for jobs through migration are failing to then be accommodated. Moving on to Department of Education, I think we're just indicating there that work has been done. There was an issue around mobile classrooms that were delivered to human settlements. The snags were not addressed by the service providers, and we have not paid for those mobile classrooms. Discussions are underway through a task team that has been established by Department of Education to ensure we respond to the issues of the AG, but also to emphasize to the members that no payment has been made for these mobile classrooms that are not meeting expectations and where snags have not been addressed. Department of Correctional Services also came in to help. We are indicating also private sector support, SASO, as well as Momentum, and also the work that was done internally through the norms and standards strategy in the schools. So we are also indicating that all these projects have reached practical completion, although payment has not been processed in some cases due to snags, but the funding is committed and will be released once all the snags have been reached. Sports and recreation, our work is also completed, and we are indicating the allocations. Department of Public Works is supporting Department of Health as well as Arts and Culture, and we are also indicating those projects across the province. For Department of Health, we are also indicating what has been budgeted for, and also in some cases projects had to be re-advertised after the real-time audits picked up some errors, so the work has to now be restarted in terms of the tenders. Moving on to Department of Transport, we are also indicating their reallocation of the budget. They had a shortfall of 3.1, and they reprioritized internally, and they've allocated 2.9 towards the reconstruction program, and we are indicating the projects that they will be implementing, 730 of them, to the value of 2.9, and in those cases, in some cases, they to request for deviations in order to quickly implement, and we are also indicating the work that they are doing through SANRAL. An MOA was signed with SANRAL, and SANRAL is the implementing agent for some of the roads, and we are also indicating where we are in terms of the failures that are on some of the roads, and the landslide that resulted in the closure of the roads. This road was in the papers for the wrong reasons. Hlungwane Road, P507. This is where we unfortunately lost a life due to a lady that drove through a road where road closure signs had been removed. It is something that is said, but we are realizing that in some communities they remove the road signs, and this is resulting in some unintended deaths that could have been avoided. But this particular road, the MEC for transport as well as the mayor, they have intervened, and the contractor is on site addressing, and that's the 21 million allocated for that project with the expected completion date of November 2023. We are also indicating also the roads that have been allocated by DOT to SANRAL, and an indication of where we are with those flood-related interventions. Moving on to roads in Reinkonyeni, we are also indicating those that have been complete and those that are underway. Also noting that some of the work is still in progress, and in some cases we've managed to get the before and after pictures of those roads. I will not go through in detail, just to give members an indication. Moving on to the request from the Ad Hoc Committee was that we also have a reflection on the recent floods in eThekwini. Unfortunately, the flood from last night and the tornado has not been captured in this presentation, but the members were on site this morning to see for themselves what is happening. But in February, we also had inclement weather, and we are indicating where the areas that were affected. If you recall, in the first map, we were indicating the coastal strips was mostly affected and the north was not. But in February, the opposite happened, and you can see Umkhanyakude, Zululand, Amajuba, and King Cetshwayo are now in the most affected, with the inland region being minimal and minor in the coastal of eThekwini and Ilembe. So you can see the weather patterns change, unpredictable, and you may focus your energies on the coastal strip only to find that there are interventions that are also required. So we have interventions across the province to address the challenges. So this work in terms of the grants, we've not been allocated anything as yet. NDMC is still working on the requests that were made in February, but we are indicating the applications that have been submitted and the shortfalls that we have from each of the municipalities that are in red: Amajuba, Ndlovu, Umzinyati, Zululand, Uthukela, and Umkhanyakude. Moving on, just to extracts from the AG's report and what we've done as a province in terms of response. Unfortunately, municipalities are still developing their audit improvement strategies for those issues that were raised by the AG, but it's work that we are closely monitoring, and as part of our municipal support, we are going to continue monitoring the municipalities to develop those audit improvement strategies so that moving forward we have a clear plan to address some of the issues that were raised. We also need to indicate that as much as there was legal progress in terms of KwaDuguza and eThekwini grants, there has been considerable improvement. KwaDuguza sitting at 60% and eThekwini sitting at 63% in terms of their expenditure. That may have increased. But we are also noting that as the NDMC, PDMC and municipalities, that continuous support to ensure we support municipalities is ongoing. Some municipalities were given an extension of time to implement their projects when we realized that the magnitude of the work required a full tender process, and all those issues we've also brought it to the attention of the AG so that moving forward we are in sync in terms of what needs to be done. We are also indicating there the grant expenditure issues and the allocations for municipalities. 406, the initial 406, we are sitting at 278 as at mid-June. There is a balance of 127 million that is still to be claimed for work that was granted an extension of time, and also for the retention. For the R&R, the allocation is 3.3 billion and expenditure to date is 688, which is at 20%, but we are also indicating that municipalities have clear implementation plans in terms of where they would want to be, although they had challenges initially, but I think moving forward that is improving. we realized supply chain processes were taking too long. And in some cases, municipalities through the CFOs did not want to implement the emergency procurement process in fear of breaking the law or in fear of maybe missing something in the process. So that is a lesson that we also learned, that moving forward, we may need to put emphasis that the MFA makes that provision for emergency procurement, and we need to activate those provisions where necessary. And in some cases, supply chain processes were subjected to real-time audit, which tended to take long, delaying the procurement and implementation on the ground. We are also revisiting some of the municipal disaster recovery grant funding framework so that we have a common understanding with our clients, which is municipalities, so that they understand that the first phase is emergency funding. Within 6 months, we hope to complete, and then the next phase is the full recovery grant that we hope to then complete maybe beyond the 6 months. So that is work that we are also working on. But most municipalities were not able to meet the 6 months period that is within the framework. And moving forward, it was also an eye-opener for COCTA as well as the NDMC. COCTA is continuing with the supports and engagements with municipalities, and on a monthly basis, we are meeting with the municipalities to receive reports. That is the reason why we've managed to consolidate for the Ad Hoc Committee. And the interventions for COCTA is the steering committee, monthly, the municipal PSCs per project, also the technical team meetings on a quarterly basis, and then the oversight by the National Disaster Management Center. And for eThekwini in particular, there is a task team that has been put in place to also deal with the water issues globally. That is a team led by DWS supporting the municipality. Compliance issues, we hope they will improve in the next audit, and we are fighting to have that. Of our recommendations and mitigation, I think we've acknowledged that the province has a high number of households that have mud structures and informal settlements, and this is affecting us in terms of our rehabilitation plans. And this also means a lot of budget has to be allocated towards the human settlements to address those issues. Mitigations, households that are approved in various projects are prioritized to minimize the impact of disaster, and we also use our OSS structures to continuously implement some of the interventions. The sustainability of the province in terms of disasters, it requires fully established emergency housing business units, and human settlements is working on that. Moving forward, there should be some improvement. Also need to indicate that the April floods also showed us that our response measures are not adequate. More research is required in the disaster sector, and DPME is already assisting us in that regard, and they've done a webinar which included other countries to show their best practice and how best moving forward we can improve our response measures. These are some of the challenges that we are facing: the issues of state of readiness by disaster centers, the issue of poor coordination of disaster, of donor support that we also experienced. And in that regard, we are going to be hosting a provincial disaster management summit that has already been packaged and approved by the subcommittee on disasters. We've also developed a provincial management policy on donations. It has been tabled at the subcommittee and is now going through the cluster systems before it gets to cabinet. We are also going to be promoting entering into standard agreements between provinces for support, and also among districts, focusing on resource sharing during disasters. We saw during the disaster that we had other provinces came in handy, but because we didn't have agreements in advance, that was also a disadvantage in terms of the speed with which we responded. But moving forward, that will be addressed. Delays in verifying disaster damages and costing thereof, and also the thumb sucking that we then realized in terms of the costing. We are going to be establishing a panel of disaster management assessors that will then assist us with the quick assessment of any disasters moving forward. I also need to indicate that we found wanting in some sectors in terms of their disaster plans, and the Provincial Risk Forum has given a directive that all sectors have got to present their disaster management plans at the Provincial Disaster Risk Forum, and we are also reviewing the structure of the Provincial Disaster Management Center to ensure that we have the right structure to respond. Finally, we are finalizing the equipping of our Provincial Disaster Management Center and the installation of an integrated communication system, which is a system that was developed by CSIR, and we are hoping to roll out that system in municipalities once, as a province, we are fully conversant with the system itself. So we are finalizing procurement processes for that system. Overall, recommendations for the members of the Ad Hoc Committee is to note the reports and to also note the status in terms of the municipal performance and expenditure on the grants, and also to note that accounting officers have held several interventions to assist the slow-performing municipalities, especially eThekwini and KwaDukuza, and also the PDMC remains the coordinating agent to monitor the grant expenditures on a regular basis, and we are going to continue conducting site inspections to ensure value for money for the work that is being done on the ground, and also monitoring the audit improvement strategies that will be developed moving forward. Thank you, Chair. That's the presentation, consolidated, including municipalities.
Oh, thank you very much for that presentation. And what I like about the presentation is it gives us an overall picture of what has been happening in the entire province and not only in a specific municipality. It is thus one presentation for the entire province. Is there anyone from the eThekwini municipality who wants to add to this presentation that is there? Is there anyone? Deputy Mayor, would you like to say something? Please come forward. Introduce yourself, and then you can have make your remarks.
Greetings, Chairperson. Greetings to the honorable members, the officials from national, different departments, the officials from the province, the officials from eThekwini, my colleague, the Speaker of eThekwini, Councillor Unyawose. All protocol is indeed observed. Colleagues, it is paramount for us as eThekwini to highlight some of the successes and also the challenges that we are still facing. One of the challenges has been highlighted in the report, the issue of SCM. The question will be, what is eThekwini municipality doing regarding that challenge? As the ESCO, we have took a resolution to say, let us sit down and look at other methods that we can use, because we have identified that the issue of time in terms of the processes hinder our core business, which is service delivery. And this has impacted back to us as a municipality, because at the end of the day, as we are sitting here, there is a perception that says eThekwini is failing to spend because they don't have the capacity. It's a debate for another day. But the reality is, the biggest elephant within our system, that we are having programs for turnout, so that at the end of the day, every time we will not come here with challenges that there are no plans or mitigating factors that will change the status quo. And another success story that one also needs to highlight, Chairperson, through you, is that we have seen that through the DTM, we are able to respond better when there are challenges, of which I think moving forward, we need to also to sit down and develop also other models, because at the end of the day, we are one government. It doesn't matter which sphere of government we are in. And moving forward also, it is also very paramount. I'm glad because here there are lawmakers who can review this. It is also very disturbing, colleagues, that at times, due to this elephant of ours, which are called the SCM, we end up going on the ground with no immediate response, which is not enough. And sometimes you find that the NGOs are leading us. I'm not saying it's wrong, but at the end of the day, who is government? We should lead. So those are the challenges moving forward, because when you look at our system of disaster, it was designed years ago, and nobody knew about the current challenges of the climate change. We are eThekwini. eThekwini is in the coastal. So it means that we know very well that we are in danger. And as eThekwini, we will be hosting a climate change summit, because we are saying that moving forward, we must have this new approach that will also demand us to change the way we plan. When we talk about even the budget, our budget, they don't reflect the new era that we are in. At times, even us as colleagues, we always have that debate, because it seems as if it's a norm that when you're doing a budget, you will just take whatever is left and put it in the disaster. When you're talking about restructuring, currently we are having challenges in different wards. And another biggest challenge will be, do we have enough staff to go on the ground? So those are the things that as eThekwini municipality, we are coming up with plans in order to deal with those. Through you, Chairperson, I would also like to call upon Mr. Vincent on stage. Through you, Chair. I'm not taking your powers, but I thank you.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Where's Vincent? Vincent will introduce himself.
Good day, Chair, Deputy Mayor, Speaker, all the colleagues, the all protocol observed. I fully agree with old Deputy Mayor in all what she has said, and also all my colleagues from COCTA, DDG, on her presentation. I got only one comment that I can make is the issue of the capacity on disaster fraternity, which is still hinders a lot of challenges in terms of responding. Other than that, I like to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we'll, when we get to questions of clarity and so forth, the members will do a few follow-ups. The first presentation was quite comprehensive, and it includes a lot of things, even responses to the issues that was raised by the Auditor General, although we may have a different view on what the Auditor General said needs to be done and what has been done. We have with us a team of researchers and content advisors that has gone through the presentation before we go here, and the members will reflect by asking questions of clarity or making emphasis. When I called the Honorable Schlengwa, I asked him, in which municipality is Port Shepstone? And he said, no, it's Rinkonyeni municipality. And immediately, based on our past experience, where we were taken to, there's an area there called Valley Road. It doesn't appear anywhere on the work that has either been done or that has been identified. And we were there. And I made the remark at the time to say that once you start recording certain things and you take the committee to certain areas where you as a municipality has identified where disaster has occurred and flooding has occurred and nothing is being done about it, now then you open yourself up to litigation. Now where will the litigation come from? It will come from those houses, those people who live there. There's another flood and the same thing happened, then they're going to say no. There were people here from, whether it's national, provincial or local government. It's not the first time that it's occurred. In fact, the owners, they showed us an album of every time when there's a flood happening, those houses are affected there. And one would have expected that it would have been part of the presentation or included somewhere. But for it simply to be ignored means you wasted our time taking us there, or you're not taking us serious. So we would like to have a response on that, right? There are two areas, and you could see the flow. And we were given a commitment. Honorable, as some of you can recall, when we were there, and they say, no, we just need to clear this area because there's things that's dumped here and all that you don't need special funding for that. You can do it within your existing programs. Because the river is blocked, and because of the blocking, you find that it overflows and it damages the areas in the surrounding area. And upstream, there's also a problem that occurs there. So we expect that. We expect an explanation, Honorable Schlengwa, from the province on why have they taken us to a place to say, here is a disaster that occurred, we need money. The national government appropriates money to the province. And when it comes to the prioritization, it is left out. Right? It's not correct. We cannot operate like that because we owe those people an explanation as to why things are happening in the municipality but not where they are living. Right? We need to look after the needs of all our people, especially since it was the municipality themselves that identified. We didn't go there from the airport on our own. We were taken there. We were taken there, and a business case was made to say, support us. We need more money so that we can also fix this that is there, but it doesn't even appear in the presentations that are there. I'm now going to invite the CEO or the COO, whoever it is from, the CEO, Umgeni Water. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members of both houses, Deputy Mayor, and all protocol observed. My name is Sipho Abamanana. I am currently acting as the CEO of Umgeni, but I am an executive there for a number of years. Chairperson, let me just take this opportunity to thank the committee for coming, and we are glad to host you and give you tea. Tea and coffee. We are the host, honorable member. And the and the chair, let me use your... Our profile is here. I won't say much about Umgeni. We are 2 days to go because the minister is putting us together with him Mhlathuze. So we were supposed to be 50 years old next year. So we won't be a 50-year-old child. We will end up at 49 and then start a new life as Umgeni Utugela water board. Chair, I want also to do a little commercial. We are priding ourselves at Umgeni of producing engineers, professional, not otherwise. Technicians, technologists, they are all here. You will see them when we go on site. The COO is our young professional. She's 30-something. You will come over because you will present. Sanele Mazibugo. For the aqueducts, he is in the lead because he's the COO, acting COO. He's 37. He grew up at Umgeni, professional engineer, top at the end. There's nothing more. The employer's agent is another engineer who grew up. He's younger than Sanele. I want to tell his age, Ndosi. But just for the members, we want to emphasize the point that Umgeni Water is an SOE, that is a learning organization. Learning organization. We take pride in that. We grow our timber, we grow engineers for municipalities and all other professionals and paraprofessionals. And the other point to make, Chair, is that we are learning because after the disaster, our designs that you will see of how the pipes are put under the ground or above the ground has been informed by research as well at the highest level of the designers that we have within the country as well as abroad. So in our presentation, we've got 20 slides which are giving an overview of actually how we went about to repair the damages. Because Umgeni Water's mandate is twofold. We take bulk supply. The members will go through it quickly because Sanele will refer to slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. It is in the packs and everybody will be able to understand and go with it better. But in the wastewater part, Chair, we don't have it here. We are also working with eThekwini in terms of the wastewater works. Out of the 27, eThekwini, we will be working with them on 10. And we have started already on the first 6. So the presentation will say, what have we done on the aqueducts, which is the supply of potable drinking water, but we are also working on the wastewater, which we can give those details later to the members. And we did brief our minister on Friday. He was here on this presentation and he wished as well to say his wishes to the honorable members. Thank you, Chairperson. COO, please take the members on the 20-point slides. Don't read, just present.
Chairperson, honorable members, Deputy Mayor, all protocol observed. I am going to make reference to the packs, seeing that the slide is a bit small on screen there. The project that we are going to talk about is the Negel Aqueducts project. The impact of this project translates to supply of water to eThekwini of about 1.6 million people. This was the impact during the floods last year. I'm not going to go through slide by slide, but on the glossary of items, just to explain the term aqueduct. Aqueduct is, in simple terms, it's a combination of pipes and tunnels drilled through rocks and mountains. This is why we refer to it as aqueduct. It's as simple as that. I'm going to refer to the supply of eThekwini. This is the largest plant in the supply system of eThekwini. It is a 15 million liters per day of water, of clean potable water to the city. The system affected, if you look at slide 5 where I've circled the red, this is the area of eThekwini. It is also supplemented by another plant upstream of Umgeni, which is Midma Waterworks. So what was affected was the Durban Ice plant, which is in Durban, which supplied the 615, where we lost 2 of these aqueducts. So it has 4 aqueducts. On the next slide, there is a schematic there which shows the plant on the top left, which is Durban Ice Treatment Plant, receiving water from the Negel Dam on the top right through the 4 aqueducts. So 1 and 2 aqueducts were completely washed away in 8 sites around the area of Molweni where we will go and see and visit. Through the redundancy in the system, we were able to supply water to some extent to eThekwini through pump stations from another supply system, which is en route to the Nanda Dam. That is energy consuming, and it was not sufficient enough. So this is the background in terms of the system. We lost approximately 1.6 million people supply equivalent. That's if you look at 100 liters per person per day. That was the impact. And the project has since started. The project conveys raw water from Inanda Dam. Total distance is about 45 kilometers to the plant, but it was affected in about 8 different sites. These are the sites that we needed to repair. And work had started last year already. And if we are to go through the projects, I will not go through the slides where we give background, because I believe the committee was here to see the damage, but we've provided a few slides to show what was the extent of damage in those eight sites. So we have done work, and aqueduct number 1 has since been repaired and is flowing from December 2022. We were able to fast track that. Minister had put some emphasis to make sure that we restore that. That is equivalent of 100 megaliters per day of water, which is 100 million liters per day of water. So to relieve some of the redundancies, we have not relieved them because we are not yet there yet. Aqueduct number 2 is the largest one. It is 160 million liters per day. This is the one that we are about to complete also. But in terms of the work that has been done, we are showing it using photos. There are photos of these sites. If we look from slide 12, this is one site that was washed away. You will see 2 pipes there. Aqueduct 1 on the left, aqueduct 2 on the right. Aqueduct 1 is a smaller sized pipe, about 100 millimeters of diameter. Aqueduct 2 is a bigger sized pipe, and the type of material is different. This is why we're able to prioritize Aqueduct 1, because it's a steel pipe. Aqueduct 2 is what we term pre-stressed type of concrete, which is concrete with wires inside for strengthening purposes. The progress to date is that we have repaired all the sites. All that is remaining now is the work as a result of the scanning which we did as part of this project to make sure that it is resilient, because it was not a straight repair. Because of the type of damage that we incurred, we needed to redesign to make sure that the system is sustainable. It will not suffer similar damages, which I hope when we get there after the floods last night, we will witness that. So in terms of the repair, that is complete. If we go through all those slides, it shows what we will see on site when we get there. And we are to complete the remaining works, which we have identified for further strengthening of the pipe upstream and downstream of the affected areas. And as far as the spending is concerned, we are 66% spent on the project. We are on schedule. We are not foreseeing any major issues. The project will subsequently be completed in full in September. So I think with that, Chairperson, I think this is the project progress that we will see on site. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, we listened to you. That's why it's making such good progress. It's listening to you. No, thank you very much for that presentation. We also received that. We have looked at it, and thank you for kindly taking us through it. I will now open up and give an opportunity to members of the Ad Hoc Committee, members of Parliament, who will raise certain questions, matters of emphasis, and they will introduce themselves as they take the floor. Can I see the hands, please? I'm gender sensitive, Honourable Soma, because I'm in your constituency.
Start this side.
Yes, I'll start on that side, and then
you're
we will
in-
move. And
you're
we'll
in
move
my
up. I see each one.
You're in my province too.
You in a province, not your
You know,
province.
and this is minus.
Ours.
In your province,
Oh.
yes. Yes. We are in a unitary state, but let me respect your province. Honourable Karim, let's start by you and then we'll move up. Eh?
Thanks, Chair. We don't have a mic.
Where's the roving mic? There was a roving mic earlier on. Where's the roving mic?
Roving mic? No.
It was here.
Thanks, Mala.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chairperson. My name is Hlengiwe Mkhalipi. I'm the alternative member of this committee. I'm no longer a stepchild of this committee. Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the comprehensive report from COPTA, which covers all other departments. Chair, as we alluded to the fact that we are here to get a progress report in regards to 2022 floods, but yesterday what happened there at Inanda in our surrounding areas, it's also a very sad state of affairs. And I appreciate the fact that you also said to the department they must also have an additional information in regards to what happened last night. You must be a responsive government to that sense. Chair, on the presentation that was done to us, I just want to start by saying the presenter mentioned, even the deputy mayor, unfortunately she's not here, she mentioned the issue of capacity. And some of the things that you are learning from the presentation, some of us as members of parliament, we are also activists, and these things happen where we stay. So we want to get a feedback in regards to things that some of them we know very much and we have an experience of those things. For instance, after we engaged last time with all departments, and I remember the former MEC, unfortunately he is no longer the MEC of Human Settlement. There is a new MEC, unfortunately he's not here. After that meeting, he took his time and said, let us visit those areas when I was raising some of the concerns. And then after visiting those areas that were affected, which is your Ward 57, there was an issue of Gwabtelezi family who was applied for a burial scheme. And even Comrade Minor here, they went there with Sis Lindy. And then after that intervention from the former MEC of COPTA, Sihle Zigalala, that family, I'm happy to announce here, Chair, because I raised that concern here. After the intervention of former MEC Sihle Zigalala, that family got that 45,000 as a family, and they were happy. But I'm saying that some of the things that we did with the MEC Mahlaba, up until now, there is no progress report. For instance, yesterday, as there was that storm that took place at Inand, Minister Mahlaba and the team, some of them they are here. They even visited an area in Brooks Farm. And yesterday, when the thing started, that particular area, some of the members of the family, they have to flee the area because there is a small stream that is blocked, Chairperson. It does not even need some pipes from Umgen. It needs to be unblocked, but because there's a lot of stone inside and so on and so on and so on. So I just want to get a clarity. If we raise some of the things that affects community, it's not because we are bored, but we want intervention. It's very sad to that particular family in that area. Each and every time there's heavy rain, they must flee the area because there's no intervention. Some simple thing to unblock pipes, clean those pipes that can also ensure that the water are running and not coming to the house. In fact, there are 2 houses that are affected there. So there's no intervention there. I just want to get a clarity from the municipality and from all relevant departments to say, what have you done in order for that family to feel that I have a dignity of my house? I don't have to panic each time there's heavy rains here. That is one. I just want to get a clarity in terms of those social workers. The presenter who was presenting here, they're telling us this, there are a number of families that are getting psychosocial support. When I look at the list, Chair, I just want to get a clarity. What criteria do they have to use? Because there are families that we reported personally, as I'm saying that we stay with those people in the community. For instance, there's a child who was schooling at Amandletu High School, Babu Speaker of eThekwini. And then that child is not even in that list. And then that family lost the child and the father in that family. As a result, that young mother, she's a drunkard today. Even former MEC Sihle Zigalala visited the family to meet with the family. I don't remember anything in terms of the support. Can we be clarified? How do you use your criteria to choose what you want to support these families and not these families? It also comes back to the issue of capacity. It also goes to the reports that we receive here, which there's an RDP houses that those people they have got. The very same family who lost the child and the father, that mother does not have a house since floods 2022. And there's a lot of lists that we submitted together with councillors and activists to the Department of Culture. And no one was contacted. It's very sad, Chair, because even as we're sitting here today, when we were there at Inanda earlier in the morning, so the mayor continued to visit those areas that are affected. And now they're also reporting that they are calling people that were affected last night to come and put their names down. Something that we have done during floods 2022. But those names, we're just calling the community, raising expectation. After that, there's nothing. Can we get a sense to say that, how are you going to resolve this problem and close that particular chapter? I know it's not a fault of anyone when there's a disaster in terms of these things, but at least the family get a closure to say now, I don't think I will ever see my daughter or the father of the house. Some sort of a closure. What are the plans from the government to say, this particular family have lost this person and it's obvious it's not going to come back? And then we were also told previously that the National Treasurer have also intervened in terms of the social workers in the province. But the presenter told us that there is only 39 additional social workers. I know here in this province, there are 2,000 unemployed social workers graduates. So this, we thought when we are told that National Treasurer is intervening in terms of increasing the capacity of social workers in KZN, we are going to benefit. And then also the issue of unemployment of these graduates, they are going to benefit. Because this psychosocial support, it needs social workers. It needs social workers. And then now, can we be clarified of this only 39 that are also an increase out of 2,000? What sort of intervention the National Treasurer have made? On the issue of water, I also ask my colleague next to me. There is a crisis of water in eThekwini, particularly in eThekwini. I don't know about any municipalities, but here, eThekwini, there is a collapse in the Department of Water. You even call the department, you even call the HOD to say that, no, here, people, they don't have water. He'll simply say that, no, let me just be honest with you. As you're telling me that the water tankers that are needed in Verulam, I have to go to Ntuzuma because there's a crisis of water in Ntuzuma. So now we are told here that there is also a particular team that has been formed by the DWS. I think it's a Department of Water and Sanitation. I don't know. So can we be clarified what sort of intervention, Deputy Mayor, that you are making in terms of water? I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know. I even said to Babum Soid as a head of department, when I was a councillor, 10 years or 30 years or 40 years back, I can't even remember, there was a progress in terms of Zambisa Mans band. But we are regressing as a eThekwini. What is happening? You really just tell us in simple terms, why are we having problems that we're not supposed to have? I know one of the challenges is decaying infrastructure. But the Deputy Mayor was standing there telling us that there's a progress. Tell us, how do you address this thing? Let us not hide behind floods and so on and so on. There is a crisis as we speak here. Unfortunately, I couldn't listen to the presentation of Umgeni Water because we also want to know what sort of intervention, but the issue of water eThekwini is a serious matter. Even Umabumswele, when we engage with him, he's also telling you that if you don't get hold of me, get hold of my deputy. The deputy is the one also responsible for operations. And then you submit to say, these are the list of number of people who have been reporting. Since January, it's May now. They're still leaking. No one have attended there. And then the deputy of Umswele is telling me that, no, but my team have responded to say they have attended to that leaks. I'm talking about leaks from January to May. So let alone now there's a crisis that was caused by floods, but generally speaking, there's a problem of water here. The last question, Chair, so I can also allow my colleagues also to ask their question. So the presenter is updating us in terms of the allocation that were allocated from different municipalities. For instance, she's saying that Mkambatini, they have completed their allocation, and Ilembe have completed their allocation. But when you are saying it to Ilembe have completed their allocation, what about KwaDuguza? Because KwaDuguza falls under Ilembe. And as far as I know, KwaDuguza is still at 60%. Can we get a progress report? KwaDuguza, unfortunately, I don't have to attack women leadership. Is a mayor, is a woman mayor. It KwaDuguza. I also interacted with her, telling her, here, mayor, in your vicinity here, there are young children after floods, the block, the bridge collapsed. So if they're going to there's only one a primary school, Chair, they have to take out their uniform in order to cross the bridge as we speak. But unfortunately, she's not here to respond. And there's nothing that has been done while we are sitting only at 60% spending while there is money. It becomes a problem. And I know, Chair, we have raised those concerns to say, you know, you go all out, you do oversight as we did this morning. Unfortunately, next day we'll come back and people will say, no, last time we see your faces as members of parliament was last time when we had this disaster, but it's still the same. It's even worse if the money has been allocated and is not being used and people still suffer on the ground. So if we can be clarified on that one, as well as eThekwini, we were told that it's only 66% that has been used in this environment that needs more money and more service delivery. Thank you very much, Chair.
Asibonge isihlalo sibingelele ngenkulu intobeko nje bonke abasendlini. Chair, let's probably say, yeah, it's on. Let's say that we note the report, in particular from COCTA, and what is good about it is says that we must note it. But in your input, Chair, we went to some sites that we would have appreciated this presentation to talk to throughout the province in the areas that we visited to. And I'm sure then in the immediate future, before the end of this week, we would have received that information. And the one example that you made, Chair. Two, Chair, is that, you know, Deputy Mayor, I just want to start there. What is good about Deputy Mayor says that there's a big elephant in the room, which is supply chain management. But there's no specific, you can't hold it, what is the problem? And for me, Chair, I don't like generalization. Because if you are all hard on it in solving it, tell us what difference that you are putting on the ground without cutting corners in terms of financial regulations, observations. You know, last time here, and even in the media, we were told that municipalities need more money. We fought with Treasury, even the minister, by the way, as colleagues, and we gave municipality the money, and they never spent it. And it went back. So my question, Chair, is that, and I'm sure, Speaker, you are not going to respond to this one because I think it falls under the table of Deputy Mayor in terms of the responsibilities of municipalities, that in this financial year that has started, what technical capacity and capabilities that are there that gives us as a eThekwini confidence that we are going to spend the money. It's not new, it has been there, all of us were aware of it. With quality as well, because sometimes we just spend money, but the quality, then you would not appreciate it or see it. Thirdly, Chair, I think I'm covered on this one, that we are hosted by Umgeni Water because they don't have their own facilities. They rather pay for the hotel to host us, but we appreciate that nevertheless. But the point I'm driving at, we waste money for no good reason. That's my point. I'm not sarcastic, but it's a waste of money. We've got facilities. We would have gone here at by Reservoir Hills next to my house so that I can go and see my house as well. Thirdly, Chair, I think Umgeni Water have dealt with my issues because they were very clear and scientific in terms of the actual and also simplifying what they are addressing. My point, Chair, you'll recall that in our last engagement, we requested that eThekwini together with Umgeni Water, whether it's the new form of Umgeni Water or what, that there is, in April 2022, large volumes of water has been wasted, not because of the eThekwini, but because of the floods. And we requested that do go back to your draw room and say, how best are you going to have a special dispensation to give a discount on that period? I know it's difficult to quantify it, but I think it's very important because eThekwini would have paid for that money, for that water, and eThekwini will bill those ones who are loyal, who pay for the services, for the water that they never used. Because also eThekwini didn't tell us how are they going to write off the wasted water, as it were, let alone the point that my colleague has raised in terms of aged infrastructure, as it were, where there's leakages and all that, but specifically for that period. Fourthly, Chair, Cocta spoke about also a sense of comfort that moving forward, we will see a better audit result, as it were. Can we be taken into confidence what difference you are going to input to ensure that there's a different audit outcome, as it were? Notwithstanding that, also, you didn't go deep in terms of the issues that have been raised by AG. How have you intended to, moving forward, to address them? I'm closer home, Chair. Issues of TRUs. In our last engagement, we were promised that we are now going to move from that to permanent houses because the TRUs also, in terms of the value, they are more or less the same. But also the other point that I would like to take into confidence is the issue of land, proper land to house those communities. How far are we with that? And our negotiations with the traditional leaders. And leave this plumber alone for this time around, because it's not there as a hindrance. 5, Chair, I'm closing home. I know that sometimes, but today you are going to be patient with me. I know what I've done to you, and you are very satisfied with me. Specifically, Chair, what Honorable Mkalipi have said, in terms of performance, I'm not satisfied because last night, I know you are too athletic in this room. Just stay here in the meeting. The last point, as Honorable Kalipi have said, that we stay here, we walk, we do our constituent work, very much active. Ward 15, to be specific, eThekwini, that what are you going to do with the vulnerable bare interim pipes that you have put? We're happy that communities are getting water, but that those pipes that you have left there, and which is throughout, by the way. I've been at this side, at the west, I've been at the south, fortunately, and the north. You know, Honorable Speaker, that I do my homework to say, what are you going to be doing with that? The other one, Chair, which is the same one also, is the issue of now the yesterday's one. As you will be going and compiling a report on that, we appreciate that one also. All of us, we know you can't have magic. I would like to say that we will have an interim in terms of your water tankers and all that. But when you give us the report, also incorporate moving forward the service sustainability in terms of continuous service, like your electricity has been damaged and all those things, but it's a homework, which I'm just using the opportunity on this one. Other than that, Chair, there is a progress. We have witnessed the progress in some of the areas, but there's still more to be done. And to urge also our officials, our learned technical team that makes our government tick, that let's do our bit. And politicians who have dealt with the money that you said you need more money, so you could see that we're meeting each other halfway, but meet our constituencies and our communities halfway in terms of bettering the situation that they find themselves in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Also want to extend my greetings to yourself, members, and all protocol observed. Chair, I think I would want to emphasize the issue of a disaster requires, number one, there needs to be a quick turnaround time because it's a disaster. The second issue, Chair, is that when money is allocated, you would expect that that money will be used because you are dealing with a disaster that requires that people must be receiving their services. And lastly, I think some of the speakers mentioned how the province is prone to disasters, meaning if some of the issues take long to resolve, they are going to pile up and further disasters are going to make the problem to be worse. So in light of that, Chair, I've got questions regarding Ilembe and eThekwini as well as KwaDukuza, because we find that those municipalities, they've spent, there's roughly 60% each, 60%, 60% and 63% on the money that was allocated, which for me does not make sense that there's money allocated to respond to a disaster. The infrastructure is damaged or people are in need, but only 60% is basically utilized. And I get one would be tempted to understand how the explanation of CFOs that perhaps at first could not understand the changes in terms of the procurement processes. But you're dealing with officials, technical officials that would be learned to an extent to understand such issues quickly. It would not take months for a CFO to understand that in a disaster there's different policies or policies utilized to deal with how money is spent. So that is the first one. The second question, Chair, is regarding the buildings in the Durban CBD. I remember in the last engagement, the mayor of eThekwini spoke about how some of the abandoned buildings in the CBD will be upgraded and to be used as housing units to actually move away people who are currently settled in floodplains. So wanted to find out where is that. Also, besides those abandoned buildings in the CBDs, what are the permanent solutions for people living or settled in floodplains? And also perhaps timelines, because it's easy to identify, to say this is what we're going to do, but if no timelines are actually attached, then we could have people living in floodplains for the next 10 years. Then the last question would be, how many people are still living either in churches, community halls, and what is the plan for the people? I just want, if there could be an emphasis whether there are people that are currently housed in such units or there's nothing, because I note in our program tomorrow and on Friday we are due to visit such places. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and all the delegates in this platform. My name is China Dodovu. As we said, we must introduce ourselves, Chair. I will not deal with the issues that other honorable members have extensively dealt with. I will delineate those issues and deal with others that I think are also important. Secondly, Chair, you rightly said we are here on a second visit to KZN because we are propelled by a burning desire to ensure that we not only perform our oversight function, but we also assist where the problems are. Now, having listened carefully to the two specific presentations, one would say everything is honky-dory, everything is okay. The province and municipality and the boards are dealing with this particular issues quite appropriately, it's okay, and we are satisfied, and this is what we can report to Parliament. But for me, sitting here, Honorable Chair, the contrary is true, and I want all the authorities to rebut and engage me on the issues that I'm going to raise. Firstly, we are a committee of Parliament, and last year, just last year, there was a deputy mayor of eThekwini. I'm told that he's no longer part of eThekwini. He's somewhere else. He was attacking everybody left and right. And I feel that issue must not be left unattended. He was accusing Parliament for coming here. He was accusing the government for coming here when there is a disaster. People were killed as a result. Their infrastructure was disintegrated. They were displaced. And I think in my respective view, these people needed their government, needed their leaders to come forward and share with them the pain and provide them with solutions. And I don't think that it is correct that in a spirit of cooperative governance and intergovernmental relations, we should behave in that particular way. And this is a misbehavior that I wanted specifically to raise to that deputy mayor, that you don't do that. When there is a crisis, it calls for all the leaders to come and resolve it and to work in unison to ensure that it assists those who are adversely affected by that situation. For me, that is quite important. And one of his outcry was money. It was money. The money was made available, and the municipality has not spent it appropriately. Specifically with regard to money, there are two issues. The now deputy mayor says there are supply chain challenges, supply chain management challenges. I really don't know what are they, because she has not spelled out in precision to say these are the specific supply chain management problems that we are encountering, and on top, Honorable Chair, this is what we are doing to address those particular challenges. What we hear is some stories and some information that was brought to the attention of this committee. One of those, it is the Auditor General. When she conducted the lifetime audit, she has indicated specific problems about expenditure patterns of eThekwini as well as the province in general in terms of how you spending the monies. And I will not repeat what the Auditor General has said, but the expectation is that you need to tell us how are you going to address those issues which were raised by the Auditor General, whether it is the slowness of the process, whether it is human settlement, whether it is water, it is anything that the Auditor General was saying. We expect you to say, this is how we are dealing with those particular issues. And the real-time audit was important because we do not want to do the exposed factor audit where we do it after the fact. It goes with how you're spending money, and he has pointed out those particular issues, and I want Honorable Chair them to respond on these particular issues. Sometimes around November last year, there was an issue that was raised about the fact that certain people who were displaced were moved from the hotels and they were placed in the Royal Hotel. They were removed from their halls and be placed in the Royal Hotel, and that created some frenzy in eThekwini. We want to know what has happened to those particular people, and whether it was true that these people were moved to those particular people. Now, for me, Chair, we can't blame the past forever. We have been a government for 29 years, national and provincial, and municipality around that particular area. eThekwini must say to us, this is how we're doing our fiscal planning, spatial planning. Because partly, or mainly, Chair, let me add to say mainly, the people who get adversely affected during the floods are those who are not properly located. People who are located in very risky and dangerous environments. And that can be ameliorated, it can only be addressed if we sort out our spatial planning. And I don't know what the spatial planning framework of the municipalities is, but I think it is quite important. And Minache, I'm very, very jealous about the area where we're coming from. That area, it is historical. It is a heritage place for this country. It is where President Dube comes from. It is where President Pixley Sakakasem comes from. It is where Ishembe Church is not headquartered. That place is very historic. Seeing people in that condition, it is very painful. And my view is that the government, both provincial and municipality, must pay special attention to those people where we're coming from. It's quite clear, without the flood, you can see that this area is not okay, it's not properly planned and structured, and inevitably, when there are floods or natural disasters, you are bound to expect what we have witnessed last night and today. Because of that, in my view, poor planning, that I think it must be addressed. Lastly, Chair, there was a road that the EFF visited sometime. They call it, well, I've written it here, Mhlungwane Bridge, the Mhlungwane Bridge, where a motorist from Gauteng fell into that bridge because he wasn't aware that that particular bridge was not fixed. I want to know what has happened since that particular situation, and whether that bridge has been fixed as well. And the issues that there is an organization, I don't know how it is, it's a movement that always raises issues about eThekwini and the work that eThekwini is doing. I've written it down. Whatever the movement is every day raising issues about these flood problems, and I don't know whether can't there be some engagement if what they are saying, what they are telling the South Africans is correct. Why can't we have an engagement with them so that we give them the correct and proper picture about what we're doing? Because I think what they are doing and saying every day of their lives, it is counterproductive. It's not good for the image of eThekwini especially. And my view is that there ought to be some response to that and how we engage such organizations so that if what they are saying is not correct, we give them the correct situation, or at least we respond to the public correctly about what is the status quo of the situation. I thought I must pause there, Chair, but those are the concerns and questions that I would like the committee to respond to.
Thank you. Ikamalam Guslindle Wakaltuli, Kamuga Elembing, and also eThekwini, Songisekai. Chairperson, I want to agree with all members at the Kunumanana issues that they were raising. But I think eThekwini municipality, prevention is better than cure. There are things that I believe if Ubube umkhandlu weTheku pay attention kuyona angabe inkinga engazikho. I want to start with Mhlungwane bridge because that was very sad. If Ubube since that bridge ekade ilimele and then kwakufakwe izinto permanent to make sure that ayimuveki. If ufake danger tape, definitely izokuphetshula umoya, and if ufake into ze-plastic izomove, but if ufake ama-concrete, you know ukuthi ngeke imoto ikwazi ukudlula. So it was very sad. And also I think most of inkinga esiboni, as we were coming here, we used was that M19? M19. Khona inhlabathi emgwaqweni and igcwele amanzi. It shows ukuthi maintenance is not being done kuma drains ethu. So if we can focus we maintenance kakhulu, we can also prevent other disasters enzakalayo. Deputy Mayor Dadewethu, the elephant that you spoke of, SCM, I would really like you ukuthi ube more specific, as other members were requesting ukuthi, what is it that you think fanele nyayenza, because now this elephant in vimbela ukuthi nikwazi uku-attack that disasters enzekile, and we can't treat a disaster ifane nama project nje there are there with IDP, so a disaster is a disaster. And I also want to speak of Ward 62, which is Otongat, as I said, uthi KZN, fanele uthi Khaya. Even after that water plant, ANC we Otongat, people of Tongat are still without water. They are complaining every day, amanzi awekho Otongat. So I don't know what water plant imanje siqediwe yona yiphi inkinga. Umngeni, there's a serious problem eyamanzi eThekwini. Not eThekwini phela, nje iKZN yonke, but eThekwini is even worse. Lastly, Chairperson, I hear social development saying that kunama social workers aqashiwe and there was money put ukuthi kwenziwe ama social worker amaningi, but imphakathi idinga usizo, and there is no assistance yama social worker ahamba yonikeza abantu ama victims ama floods. So as another member was saying ukuthi yiphi criteria esetshenziswayo for ukuthi unikezwe abantu usizo, mhlawumbe bazoshitsha namhlanje ukuthi yona yiphi. And lastly, Chairperson, asingabukeki njengama tourists as members of parliament to come here just for show. Fanele after sifikile abantu impilo zabo they must change. That's why we are here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, colleagues, and everyone present. My name is Mkhuleko Hleng. Chair, I think I have in the main probably 3 areas, and they may be interlinked. Excuse me. The first one is about what I see as kicking for touch insofar as spending quickly, for lack of a better phrase. Because National Treasury has given a dispensation which allows for expansions and deviations insofar as National Treasury Note 3 is concerned, which took effect 1 April 2022. So I see a lot of projects in a disaster being subjected to normal processes. And what is happening, Chair, is that we are going to be having project upon project because of disaster upon disaster. Now, I'm not getting a sense that National Treasury Note 3, I've got my reservations about it, but obviously because it's there and is a tool that National Treasury has deployed, I don't get a sense that it's actually gaining traction. It's a year later, and there's things still stuck in bid process, bid adjudication. There's a long list of everything, but nothing has been done. Yet the Treasury note, particularly for the provincial government, gives a special dispensation. And then thereafter 14 days you make a presentation to National Treasury or Treasury and the AG. And it's a year later. It boils down to this thing, Chair, that happened during COVID-19. An assumption that you can spend willy-nilly. No, there's a special arrangement in place. And my thinking is that it's applicable in a disaster. So I hear that now there's going to be a panel of assessors for disaster. Right. After that assessment, what happens? You subject people to this long-winded process, which, yes, is necessary. It's compliant with Section 217 of the Constitution. But shouldn't there be some sort of change in outlook insofar as how you conduct your business and your spending? And I hear that there's a reluctance. Why is that? So I'm really wanting, Chair, to get an explanation as to why it's taking so long to get things done when National Treasury within the PFMA has made it possible to alleviate the plight of the people with speed and urgency. That's point number one. The second point, Chair, is about water provision in eThekwini. I'm from eThekwini. I will tell you without any fear of contradiction that water corruption in eThekwini is a major, major problem. And it is around the water tanker cabal in this district. It's prevalent everywhere, but here, infrastructure is being deliberately vandalized and collapsed because the water tankers are wanting to take over the operations because they are not just billing the municipality, but they are billing citizens on the ground to say, if you want water, you must pay. So there's double dipping. We've raised this matter last year. And I'm interested to know whether there have been interventions insofar as investigations. And if they have been done, what have been the outcomes? And if not, why has it not been done? Because we will sit here and theorize about interventions, which you need to fix the infrastructure. You will fix the infrastructure until the good Lord comes back. Because on top of the disaster, there is the deliberate sabotage of public infrastructure for the purposes of making money. And it's not a secret, it's an openly known thing. There's a syndicate around water tankers in eThekwini specifically and other authorities generally. And then it will take weeks on end, if not months, to fix basic things. I come from Ward 105. It will take at times 10 weeks. And even those water tankers that are provided, they are only going to travel on certain routes. And if you need water, you need to travel to the main road and still pay for it. So I'm really asking, Chair, because on top of the disaster, because my sense is that the disaster has provided a conducive environment for a cop-out for the continued utilization of water tankers. Now, Chair, the final point. Oh yes, eThekwini SCM. Yeah, there's a cabinet resolution, Chair, of 2014, which says all persons who are in the SCM space must be vetted. I want to know whether has that happened in eThekwini. If not, why not? And if it has, to what extent? Because we continue to have these perennial problems in the SCM space. Deputy Mayor called it an elephant in the room. I'm sure she will unpack what she means. But one of the major issues is that you have got people in SCM who should not be in SCM. And then post that you've got the victimization of auditors when they come in to perform their fiduciary responsibilities. Put aside the ever-growing headache of people who are unqualified in positions. That's one thing. But those people who are in the SCM space, have they been vetted in compliance with the cabinet decision of 2014? Then finally, Chair, is the issue of temporary housing of people. In the 2023 SONA debate, the Premier of the province alluded to the fact that everybody had been moved out of these temporary shelters. What followed after that, rightly or wrongly, was a disruption of the Premier's State of the Province address in the legislature around that key question. Now I get the program for this oversight, and it says tomorrow I'm visiting where people are housed. So what I want to know, Chair, is, have people been moved? All of them, some of them, and if they have, where have they been moved to? And I think, Chair, that must probably be a detailed response which will come with timelines as to when was this group moved and to where was it moved, how many people were moved. Because the major dilemma with these meetings, Chair, the presentations are very glossy, but they are not a reflection of what is actually happening on the ground. So as things sit now, are there people who from last year who and affected by the floods who are still housed somewhere other than where they should be, in halls, in churches, schools, whatever? Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. My name is Fani Ritoy. I'm also a member of this committee. Chair, I will be brief. I've been covered mostly by the other colleagues in the committee. Like with the previous disaster, we're sitting with constant issues that still prevailing. And I mean, one of the members mentioned that we mustn't go to spatial planning, but that's an issue that needs to be addressed. As well as the fact that there definitely seems to be a lack of maintenance in the municipal areas and other municipalities as well, that just results in this disaster snowballing. Honourable Deputy Mayor, you mentioned that climate change is playing a big part in the disaster, the previous one as well as this one. But I want to stress the fact that we do not see how climate change can be the only culprit in this whole disaster. When we visited the Eastern Cape, it was prevalent that obviously the land question or the land issue was a major concern. It was mentioned during this presentations that land is currently occupied, and we're sitting with issues with land that's currently in private ownership. But in the Eastern Cape, there were issues with regards to land in possession of tribal leaders, tribal land, and issues with discussions between the municipality and government and these tribal leaders to avail the land or to get people to occupy it. If you could maybe allude to that fact, if you are currently sitting with the same issues in this specific area, and to what extent and how far you are with regards to getting to a solution with it. Chair, with that I'm covered. I'm not going to stress this point. Thank you.
No, thank you, honourable members. And may I also just recognize the speaker who is present and part of the meeting this morning. There's a number of questions that has been asked, and I now need responses, right? And if you don't have an answer, don't give an answer, because we'll hold you accountable to what you say, right? I'm going to start with the speaker, then thereafter the deputy mayor, and then I will come down to the lady who did the presentation at the beginning. Can we get the roving mic there to the honourable speaker? Oh, there is one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Your machine is not working.
Can I use my voice, Chair?
I press it up.
No, it's on. Oh, thank you, Chair. My name is Chabani Nyawose. I'm the Speaker for Meche Municipality. I will respond, Chair, to some of the questions, but I also want to mention that there is a delegation from the Human Settlement in the province. They will respond to some of the issues that deal with housing issues and with regard to those people who were affected by floods. Let me first deal with the elephant in the room that Deputy Mayor talked about, our SCM process. At the beginning of our term, from 21 November, we discovered that there is a poor planning on side of the municipality, particularly various departments. They began to package projects after the 1st of July when they received money. Now, packaging a project, it takes some time. Following the SCM processes, appeals, sometimes objections taken to court. Now, when you implement a project in some of the communities, there are business forums. They stop those projects. Negotiating with them will take months. Then at the end of the financial year, you have no spent. That's what we have discovered. The second problem that we have discovered, high level of corruption in the SCM unit. How did we find that? We found that there are some bidders or service providers who supply all the necessary documents. But when documents reach a certain bid committee, some documents are missing. They've been delivered, they removed by SCM officials. They don't have to be picked up. Sometimes if maybe there are some queries or questions raised by relevant bid committees, a report is being sent back to a department. It takes ages for the report to be corrected, to come back to the BAC or whatever committee to be finalized. Now, those things were done deliberately because sometimes if a service provider is not being preferred by a particular official, that official won't have an energy to run with speed to correct whatever correction that have to be corrected. Those are the things that were picked up with our SCM process and also from our department. We then said the head of SCM must explain what is happening. Then we were not satisfied with his explanation. Then we decided to suspend him. Currently is on suspension, we've acted. We have a new acting SCM head, of which we are happy so far with his performance and some of the interventions that it's bringing. We have also decided that we have observed that bid committees were chaired by junior officials. Then we said chairs of bid committees now will be deputy city managers. Currently, all bid committees are chaired by deputy city managers, people who have authority to take decisions, people who won't see a report if there's something minor to be corrected. The report is being sent back to a department. Things can be corrected in a meeting because they've got authority and power to make such changes. Those are the interventions we've made. We've suspended the head, we've appointed deputy city managers to chair bid committees, and there's improvement. There's improvement in dealing with SCM. Number of cases where we suspected that this corruption have been reported to our CIU. There are investigations. Some of the reports are back. A day before we received a report with 5 SCM officials who have been alleged to be colluded with some service providers, and then we are taking actions because investigation has been done, and then the report we have received, and as a city we are going to act because those investigations were conducted through our instructions. Therefore, if it comes to SCM, we acknowledge and we are aware of the weaknesses internally, and we are fixing those weaknesses. And we happy that members of parliament have observed and they are raising that with us frankly and strongly, and we appreciate that robust debate on these matters because we know it's one of our weaknesses why we are not performing as a city. I think I've dealt in detail with the issue of what is the problem with our SCM, as I've already made the commitment that there are changes that we are making to fix that issue. the issue of water in our city. Yes, not all a problem that we are encountered with are as a result of floods. We admit that. Some of the problems are as a result of poor planning, as I've said. Poor planning in a sense that when we were installing pipes to deliver water in our communities, we ignore the issue of maintenance. It's something that happened previous years ago. And for us as a new administration, we can't blame those who came before us. We have to take responsibility and account for that because we are one government, as you have said. Now, we have not invested a lot on maintaining our infrastructure. Now, what we have done, we wanted to install new pipes, supply water in areas that were neglected before and forget to maintain the infrastructure that is existing. It has been a weakness on the side of the city, and we have now recognized that it's something that we have to address, and we are doing something to deal with that. Yes, issues of corruption again in water and sanitation, we're aware of those. How we are aware of those? You see, in Tuzuma, I think 3 weeks or a month ago, that pump station was deliberately vandalized. We suspect by contractors that maybe do some business with water or people who are involved in the water tanker business. Currently, we don't have a report, but we reported the matter to the police. It is being investigated. We do will get a report, but we are aware of that problem. Umlazi, as we speak, Umlazi, currently we are working there because our pump station were attacked by criminals. We don't know why, but we suspect it's because of the reason that I have mentioned. We do have our own water tanks as a city, but the number is not sufficient to deliver our water in all 111 wards where sometimes there's no water. But we are quite aware of the problem of water tankers. We are dealing with that. Investigation ongoing. One day we'll share with the public what has been discovered after those investigations. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Speaker. I like the forthrightness of saying this is the situation, because otherwise we start boxing with shadows. Now we know exactly what the situation is. And that frank, honest input will be very, very important on how to address and to fix the problem that is there. Because once you have that in the system, it's not only affecting the flood and disaster relief efforts, it's affecting everything in the municipality. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Before I can tackle some of other questions, let me also acknowledge the input, which is frank and progressive, which was made by honorable members, the comments and also the questions. And I think it's also paramount for us as the leadership of eThekwini to highlight this, that yes, challenges are there, and also to acknowledge the fact that we do have plans or the mitigating factors to address some of the issues. And I know that members of parliament are here because they want to get the how part to the current challenges that we are facing. Speaker, I've covered some of the questions which were raised, and I think I want to add in the issue of water. As this new current administration, we said, because we have identified that we are using a lot of money to outsource the water tankers, let us have a plan that will make our municipality to do in-house in terms of the water tankers. That's why we took a decision that in every financial year we will buy our own, because we have saw that there is also a gap when you go to the communities. The gap also that make some people to take the chance, because when you look at the issue of vandalism, yes, currently we don't have the actual report as to what are the challenges, but when you look at the pattern of this vandalism, you can identify that it's something that needs to be attended to, because it's a signal that is showing something. There is an issue also which was raised by the colleague about Umtsinzi Milela forum, if I can put that way. Yes, as a municipality, we have tried to have engagement with them, because at the end of the day, as they are based in our city, we engage with everybody, whether it's civil society, different political parties or whoever, because we account to everybody. But of our surprise that this engagement of ours, currently they are not giving a clear direction, but however, we'll keep on engaging with them, because some of the things they are raising are correct, but some of the things which they are raising, they are not factual. But however, that's why we took a decision of saying, let us keep on engaging them. And colleagues, I don't want to dwell much on this issue. I'm not saying it's not important, but we know we are going to elections and everything, everyone in different corners, they want to be seen. But however, we are engaging them, because at the end of the day, we need to account to all the people of eThekwini moving forward. And as a municipality, we have engaged with DOT, because we have identified that there are some of the roads which were damaged in the previous storms that have never been recovered. But we are receiving a very positive impact moving forward, because the road which resulted in one of our sisters having EE accident there, it's now under construction. And I also want to put the point that even though that incident happened, I think it was 2 weeks before it happened, there were signs there. But however, we know that in our communities, you put something today and then there is a challenge regarding that issue. But currently, there is a program and they are on site as we are speaking to try and address that issue moving forward. And there is also an issue which is very critical that was raised by a number of honorables here, the issue of saying eThekwini is underspending. So therefore, what are we doing as the leadership? Some of the things the speaker have covered in saying that, one, there was a challenge of proper planning that result in us not being able to meet the targets of spending. And we have sit down with the city manager and we have demanded from him to have a consequence management plan. Yes, it is on place, and we have said moving forward, this financial year, to us as leadership, we will use it as a mirror of saying, after the AG report, after the concerns from the people of eThekwini, because when we were also engaging during the budget intervention, people were also raising this issue, that we are the citizen, we are waiting for you to implement, but why? Because you do have money. And I want to give assurance to the members of parliament here that our financial status will be better moving forward, because even currently with the pace of the grants, there are improvement when you look at how are we spending versus the past current financial year. So as the leadership, we are having plans in trying to make it a point that we change the status quo regarding that. And also with the issue of vandalism, I think we cannot come here and lambast on the challenges with no plans. We are also affected as the city in terms of crime. And we took a decision in saying that we know for the fact that when you address the issue of crime, there are a lot of things that must be in place. But we said when we look at our municipality, we have Metro Police. And it was the first which was established in South Africa when you look at all these metros. But in terms of number, we are less. And we took a decision that says we have been recruiting 200 members. But now in this financial year, we are recruiting 400. And we have also took a decision of investing more on the smart policy, because we understand for the fact that we will never have enough police. But we are investing because we said, let us pilot it by starting at identifying the hotspots around the CBD, so that we will also expand and go to the people where they live and moving forward. But that is the project that also, as I've said, that is not the only thing that we are doing regarding the issue of crime. I thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for that input. I will now recognize the lady who did the presentation. Can we just pass the microphone to her, please? And I want you to specifically deal with this thing of low expenditure, right? In the presentation, I noticed that in certain areas it's 100%, others it drops down to 40%. And we were inundated as a ad hoc committee when we did the initial round to say that National Treasury is not giving us the money, right? They're taking long. And the Minister of Finance, Minister Kodongwana, was at pains, he and his officials, to explain to us, to say that this is the approach that we're using. And they also alerted us to say that the spending is the problem when the money will go through. And then you also made reference to the Auditor General, the real-time audits, and the delays in service delivery or delivery of services that it is causing. Can you just explain to us exactly what you mean by saying so that I don't understand? Because the issue, Honourable Schlengwa, other members, did not arise when we engaged the Auditor General, that real-time audits have a negative impact on the delivery of relief efforts or service delivery in general. Can you just give us your view on that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon once more. Maybe let me start with the issue that you raised initially regarding the two roads that the members visited earlier. Crescent Road and Valley Road and Rain Onion. Chair, if you recall, those two roads were damaged in the 2019-2020 floods, not in the April floods. April floods, there was additional damage, which is damage after damage, as outlined by Honourable Clem. The presentation that we did today, I think it was more aligned towards the April floods. In hindsight, I'm thinking maybe we should have also added all the disasters that happened prior in the state has in terms of funding allocation. Unfortunately, because of the current way that the grant funding is made available, you may wait a year or two or even 3 before funding is allocated towards disasters. So for the 2019-2020 disasters, for reconstruction and rehabilitation for Renkonyen. The allocation has only been made now. There's 82 million that has been made available to address those specific projects that you visited as the Ad Hoc Committee. The appointments of consultants for the designing has been done by the municipality itself, and they now await the funding to be transferred, which will be done now in the new financial year of the municipality, which is from July. The reason why they took you there was specifically to bring to your attention the challenges that we face in the sector in terms of the delays in the allocation of disaster grants. Grants come a year later. When you want to implement emergency procurement, AG will say to you, but if you could wait for a whole year, where is the emergency now for you to activate that provision in the PFMA or MFMA that says you can procure through emergency? Because you've waited for a year or two and it's no longer an emergency. I think that disjuncture that is there within, in terms of what the policies say and the realities on the ground is the dilemma that CFOs have and accounting officers have on the ground when it comes to actual implementation. Because AG would say it's no longer an emergency, you didn't need to invoke those provisions. I think those are some of the policy shifts that we need to bring to the attention of the Ad Hoc Committee to assist us as a sector to address some of those issues that we find ourselves having to face. Again, for the Crescent and Valley Road, we are still going to have challenges moving forward in terms of what was approved in what was submitted by the municipality in 2019 and 2020 as the actual damages and the estimates versus the additional damages that have now been experienced and what has been allocated. I'll give an example of Valley or even Crescent Road. What was submitted then was about 2 million cost of damages. That was 2019 and 2020. But if you look at the assessment that has been done by the consultant, scoping the work and the design, they've estimated the cost to be at 6.8 million. So come implementation, the municipality will be stuck. So those are some of the issues that we face in local government, which may not really be seen in advance when all these issues come up and even when the AG audits us. So that policy shift is required, and also the challenge in terms of, in some cases, because you are rushed to say, go and assess, we want cost estimates, we want to allocate funding. In the process, mistakes are also made. Municipalities will thumbs up and indicate this road will cost you 2 million, when in actual fact it will cost double that or even 3 times when you go into industry to get the quotations. I think also in terms of the disaster funding, we may also need to relook at our efforts towards disaster risk reduction so that we come up with more funding, especially from national, towards disaster risk reduction versus response funding. Because I think all this funding that we are getting from national, it's more for response more than for the mitigation initiatives. And municipalities are constrained when it comes to disaster risk reduction funding. So we may need to also have that policy shift so that there is more awareness and even engagements with industry in terms of the circular economy. As an example, some of the challenges that eThekwini is facing in terms of blockages in sewers, leading to stormwater challenges, it's because of the issues around waste management. When they were doing their assessments, you'd find diapers in the system, clogging the system. So meaning when it rains, you cannot drain as was anticipated at design stage. So those engagements with industry through the issues of the circular economy, I think those are some of the things that the Ad Hoc Committee can assist us moving forward so that we have that awareness by everyone, since disaster management should be everyone's business. Coming to the issues of social workers, HOD Lagazi is in the meeting, responsible for DSD. I think she will be able to cover if I don't adequately respond to the issue of social workers. But in the presentation that we did on slide 13, we indicated the 39 as people that have been, the social workers that have been allocated for the TRAs, the temporary residential accommodation. The 39 is mainly to support the continuous work at the temporary residential accommodation sites. We did indicate a wide coverage in terms of counseling. I think it was 27,200. That is reflected in slide 13. And we also indicated 692 members of the community are continuing to receive that continuous support in terms of counseling. The list that we provided with about 44 or so, that is just mainly the support that was provided to missing people, to families that have missing family members. That is the list that is in the presentation, but the coverage is much wider than that. Moving on to the issue raised on water, a water crisis in eThekwini. Maybe it would be an understatement to say water crisis in eThekwini. I think we do have a crisis across the province when it comes to water, especially given that in most cases demand is now exceeding supply. We need new water sources in some cases, and those interventions are part of the water master plan that the KZN province developed in 2020 in partnership with Umgeni Water, Umhlatuze, as well as DWS and the water service authorities. I think the issue of high water losses came out strongly in the water master plan, and the need for us to now relook at how we use water, the issue of water conservation and demand management. As much as we may need new dams, but I think we also need to put more energy on conserving the little that we have so that it's adequate for everyone. Old infrastructure is also an issue in the province, and also the issues of maintenance plans. There is a task team that I indicated earlier, set up by the Minister of Water, and it's supporting specifically eThekwini. It's headed by the DG at DWS, and in there with participation of all critical role players within eThekwini to address the issues of water, in particular, including the grant for water recovery within the municipality. We may also need to consider ramping up the War on Leaks program. If you recall, there was the War on Leaks program at a national level, and eThekwini was participating or is a beneficiary of that program, but it was piloted, and now we may need to enhance it further so that we address the leakages and at the same time create jobs among the youth in terms of addressing those leaks that we have in the system, including the replacement of old infrastructure. If we move to the issue of KwaDuguza and the fact that we didn't provide adequate detail for KwaDuguza, we apologize for that. I've just sent a detailed presentation specifically on KwaDuguza to the office to send to Secretariat so that it can be shared among members. But if you look at slide 23 in our presentation, we tried to outline the allocations in a district and which local was the beneficiary of that transfer. I think it's on slide 23, if I'm not mistaken. And KwaDuguza received a total of 109 million for each for their projects for the initial emergency grant. And out of that, they had 30 projects that they are implementing. 18 of those are now complete. And we do have some that should have been part of the reconstruction grant, but they were put in or packaged as emergency. So when those allocations were made, it was on the assumption that they would be completed within 6 months, but it became impossible for some of those projects to be completed. I'll give an example of Hellet Bridge, which was for 30 million in Ward 2. that is not complete, but it has now been projected to be completed by October. We also have the Sugra and Mazamo Road in Ward 17 for 8 million. It's also going to be completed in October. So those we do have a detailed presentation, members, that will be shared with all the members. Moving on to the issues around the details of the projects that were visited before by the portfolio. We also should be providing those who just revisit the portfolio projects and provide more information of that, Honorable Lesoma. We do have the projects. As I indicated, I'll give an example. Transport has 730 projects. If we had included them in this presentation one by one, this presentation would have been almost 1,000 slides. So that information is there, and we should be able to provide the detail after this meeting and before Friday as requested. On the issue of the eThekwini losses and the discounts, sitting next to Umgeni Water here, they may want to provide more detail in terms of the debt relief or the relief that they provided to the municipality in terms of the losses that were encountered during floods. I believe that was executed. Maybe the municipality may need to then go back and see whether that relief was passed on to consumers or not. I think it's something that can be expanded on in consultation with the municipality. On the audit improvement strategy, the audit report that the members received a few weeks ago, it has now been shared with the subcommittee on disasters in the province. It was shared with the technical subcommittee last week, and it's still going to be shared with the political subcommittee on disasters by the AG. We resolved at the technical committee that municipalities will now need to populate the audit improvement plans based on those findings that we received. So the subcommittee is going to be monitoring those strategies once they are received. And we do have a deadline. I just need to revisit my notes to see by when we would have received those audit improvement strategies from each municipality to be able to then monitor moving forward. On the issue of how many people are still in the halls, in the churches, as far as we know and as far as the audits have been done, we believe we don't have anyone currently in halls. We don't have anyone currently in churches. We also call upon anyone with more information to furnish us with that information so that we can revisit. But according to our audits, by the 24th of December, everyone had been moved from the halls into the shelters. And maybe Human Settlements can confirm that we've got with DDG in the meeting from Human Settlements. He can also confirm that as well as the municipality. But from what we know, and in terms of slide 11 that has been provided in this meeting, there were 120 mass care centers in eThekwini, 11 in KwaDukuza, 3 in Ubu, and 1 in Umsunduzi, totaling 135 mass care centers. And as far as we know, all those have been cleared. We don't have anyone in the shelters. There could be isolated places like churches, but if they are not brought to the attention of the municipalities, at times it's difficult to keep track. And we would really appreciate if we get more information so that we can revisit these sites and make sure that no one is left behind, and we do not have anyone saying we have people in the halls. So we are requesting further information so that we revisit and ensure we rehouse those that are affected and are still in the halls or churches. Honorable Dodovu, I think I've also covered to some extent, but the issue of Mhlungwi Bridge, Mhlungwana Bridge, it's a bridge owned by DOT, it's not the municipality. On slide 149, I think we did indicate that there is a budget of 21 million that has been made available by DOT through Sandral for the repairs of that bridge. The expected completion date is November 2023. We understand the repairs are just to retain the status quo. It's a low-lying bridge, and they're going to retain it to that same state. It's not a build back better, because I don't know why, but it's something that we may need to revisit through DOT, as the portfolio committee for COPTA also raised similar concerns to say, why are you retaining it as a low-lying bridge when it should actually be upgraded and made better? So it's something that we may need to revisit moving forward. On the issue of Tongat, I think the municipality may need to provide more information, but from what we have assessed, I think for Tongat, demand exceeds supply. We don't have adequate water to meet all the demands of the communities in Tongat. Over and above that, we also have challenges in terms of old infrastructure, which is leading to a lot of breakages in the system. And on a daily basis, in the group that I am on, Tongat, you get more than 20 complaints relating to water issues in Tongat. It is a concern, and we may need to have a special intervention that specifically deals with the issues of Tongat. Additionally, they are saying that we don't have enough water tankers servicing the area, and we may need to also reconsider that. The municipality is here to respond. Honorable Fengwa, on the issue of the audits in terms of SCM, I'm sure the municipality will need to respond, but from a provincial perspective, the Office of the Premier through the GCIT cluster is monitoring the issue of audits for and vetting of SCM practitioners. It's part of the governance cluster indicators. We may need to bring that report to the attention of the members in future to see how far we've gone in terms of the implementation of that provision for auditing the staff in SCM and vetting them accordingly. And then I think I've covered the issues of halls and churches. Lastly, the issue of the lack of maintenance of infrastructure. It's something that is a challenge across all municipalities. If you recall, the guide from Treasury says a minimum of 8% of the municipal budget should be set aside for repairs and maintenance, and it's not happening. I think from my recollection, for all the water service authorities, maybe Umhlatuze municipality is the only one that is budgeting that 8%. The rest are not, and it is a concern that is also being monitored through our portfolio committee. But the fact that it is a guide in itself, it becomes a problem to enforce. If National Treasury could make it something that is a fixed and that we all need to comply with, maybe we could see change in future. But as it stands, it's a guide, 8%, and municipalities are budgeting 2%, 3%, which is not meeting the expectations in terms of that. On the law expenditure, in terms of the grants, the audits by the AG, I believe it was up until March 2023. When we met with them at the subcommittee level, they did indicate that they will be revisiting their report to update up until the end of June or the municipal year end. So we expect revised indications of those expenditure levels at the end of March, noting also that the NDMC had given municipalities an extension up to March to spend, up to June to spend those grants. So there should be a lot of 100% compliance by the end of June, except for a few projects from the emergency grant that were meant then to be, that were given extensions up to October. Examples being the 2 or 3 projects or bridge projects in KwaZulu-Natal, which are going to be completed by October with approvals from the National Disaster Management Center. Real-time audit delays, I think a practical example can be maybe further outlined by my colleague DTG Bengu from Human Settlements. on their hands-on experience with the challenges with the real-time audits, especially for human settlements and the delays that they then experienced in terms of appointments for their housing program. I think that hands-on experience from them may assist the members of the Ad Hoc Committee to understand the extent of the challenges in terms of real-time auditing for these grants. If the chair may allow, I can hand over to Mr. Bengu.
Before you hand over to Mr. Bengu, you made also reference to social development and certain things that they can respond to. So we'll have social development and then also the DDG for responsible, DDG Bengu. Those are the two that we're waiting for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Good morning to honorable members and colleagues. My name is Nelisiwe Vilakazi. I'm the HOD in the Department of Social Development in the province. The speaker or the presenter did cover our side as the Department of Social Development. I will only clarify some of the issues as raised by the honorable members. If I may start with the number of social workers that are referred to in the presentation. The 39 social workers, we've allocated them in the areas where we still have people that have been allocated by the Department of Human Settlement. So they attend to them. Basically what we have as a province is one ward will have one social worker. So we've identified 39 social workers just to dedicate to those areas. We've indicated those areas where the social workers are, because we found that some are still receiving the psychosocial support, and it's much even more convenient if they are in these flats where they are, because the environment is conducive even to have a family therapy session, or even maybe to have a session with one family member. It is not enough. I think I need to also emphasize that. We have indicated in the report, honorable members, that we did receive support from the National Department of Social Development to employ more social workers. We employed 480 social workers and 64 social work supervisors on contract just to look into the victims of April 2022 floods. But the funding came later in the year, so they worked only for 5 months for a contract that expired then in March 2023. That was not enough. But it was better, because when this started, we had to take social workers from less affected districts to come to the districts that were very much affected, like eThekwini Metro, Ogu District, Ilembe, and some other areas. That helped a lot. But when the contract expired, then there was a challenge, because we still have people that we still need to take care of, and with a limited capacity. Lastly, Chairperson, I do want to respond to the concern by the honourable members in terms of the limited number of social workers and maybe not being able to address all the cases that were referred to us. Maybe after the meeting, I will want the honourable members to give me the specifics so that we follow up on those. But I must indicate that we have a shortage of social workers in the province, and I do confirm the information that the honourable member is sharing with us, which is correct, that we have more than 2,000 unemployed social work graduates in the province, and the majority of those were funded by government. At some point, Honourable Chair, I think by 2004, 2005, somewhere the social work was declared as a scarce skill in the country. Hence, National Treasury made funds available for social work for the young people who aspire to be social workers to go and study social work. So we were able as the department to actually absorb them upon completion of their degrees, but currently we are unable to employ them. We do have work for these social workers, considering the social ills that we have in the province and even in the country, because it's not only KZN, and even other provinces we are still in the same challenge. But we do not have money to actually employ those social workers, hence the challenge that we have. That's why it was even easier to get the 480 to be on contract, because they are there, they want to be employed. But I must indicate that the National Department is supporting us in terms of coming up with a joint bid by all other provinces, so that National Treasury support us to employ social workers. And we strongly believe that we're going to succeed. We haven't succeeded as yet, but it's a challenge that we are experiencing as a sector. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
No, thank you very much to the head of the department. Now, DDG Bengu. Suffice to say that the members here will agree that the issue of social workers and unemployed social workers is a national problem. It's not only here in KZN. There's thousands and thousands of young, qualified social workers who can make a major impact in addressing the social ills in the country itself. So that is something that we must, in terms of the report that we'll have to submit, we'll have to reflect on that. DDG Bengu.
Thank you. Good afternoon to honorable members and colleagues. My name is Tulani Bengu from the Provincial Department of Human Settlements, also responsible for the provincial JOC on human settlements responding to the 2022 floods. On the points that had been raised, which required clarification from us, I confirm, as Mrs. Mkojini stated, that with 135 halls and churches where people were residing, all of them had been closed by 24 December 2022. All mass care centers had closed. There are three solutions that we were using. We were giving material supply. Some moved out of the facilities getting material supply. Others moved to what we call temporary residential units that we constructed. But the majority of them moved to what you will be visiting on Friday, what we call TEAs, Transitional Emergency Accommodations, the flats that we are renting. The majority of them moved to that facility. Since that date in December, we no longer have flood victims that reside in community halls and churches. The hall that you visited, I think in your previous visit, we called Mount View Hall in Verulam, which had about 400 people. All of them moved to a building in Russell Street in Durban called Astra Building. I believe you'll be visiting that building as well. They are there together with other flood victims that come from other halls, because it's an 8-story building that we are now renting. Honorable Dodo, there are 57 people that were at Truro Hall. We had found an accommodation for them called the TEA, but the neighbors to this facility objected to the occupation of that facility by these flood victims on the day of arrival. Then we had to find a place there to go and stay at a Royal Hotel for 6 days. Then on day 7, they then moved to a facility called Crystal Valley at Reservoir Hills, which then they share with other flood victims. They've been there since that specific date. Yes, we do have a list of all halls, and also showing what we call the destination point, like people that were in Pola Hall, where did they go to? People that were at Ntuzuma A, where did they go to? People that were in any of the halls. We have that schedule, we can then make it available. The last one about the permanent solution, because as now the majority of the flood victims are in transitional emergency accommodations, the flats, we must find the permanent settlements. We had identified 13 land parcels in various parts of the province, but largely in eThekwini, which need to be converted for permanent development. We've got these farms, or we call them land parcels, from Langefontein to Burlington to Reservoir Hills, Rodekrans, and so on. These farms are giving us what we call a yield of 3,106 houses. Whilst the people that are in TEAs, they are 2,504 families. So mathematically, the 13 land parcels are sufficient to cover all the flood victims that are in TEAs. Yes, we may still have flood victims that live with their neighbors and so on, but the ones that are in TEAs are covered in this number. Mathematically, it is sufficient. We have a minor challenge in the south because people that got washed away, Kababa and so on, we are engaging with the regional chair of traditional leaders and Khoisan leaders in Nkosi Krimba to find land on traditional land where we can build for them as well, in case they don't want to move to urban areas. So that is the plan for permanent development. In terms of staging, which is what we are asking for, now that these farms have been found, all stakeholders say we must follow the law. So it's unavoidable that we must respect NEMA and EIA. We must respect SPLUMA. The moment we start building without those, then there's a whole resistance by many parties. We will follow that. What we can report today is that one of the 13 land parcels has gone through all those stages. We are ready to build from July, including procurement. So we are ready to build from July. About 3 are now at the last stages of SPLUMA. Others are still being processed. We are also aligning the processing of land parcels in line with our lease periods in these places that we are renting. To say you've got these people, they will need to move out in 24 months. Where is their land and how are we finalizing it? And lastly, on land parcels, we will also report on Montclair Lodge. We were mandated by provincial government to buy or acquire Montclair Lodge from Transnet. And it's now being repurposed so that it's available as a government-owned facility in future so that we don't have to rent. On real-time audits, the 2 points that I will raise maybe to add to what DD Jim Kuchin has stated. One was the turnaround the time that they had agreed, because they were checking every step of procurement just to make sure that everything is done orderly. But the turnaround time was not what was agreed to. So we found ourselves sometimes having to wait because for every decision, then the response time was not as quick as possible. That's one that I wanted to raise. The second one, on real-time audit, we had 2 sets of floods last year, in April and on 20 May. And in our case, they then went on 21 May to check the TRUs that were built immediately after the rainy day when it was muddy and so on. Then they produce a report says that you are building in areas that are unviable and so on. Then we had to say, no, let's then check how this happened and so on. It also costed time. But other than maybe those 2 examples that I would want to raise, because now they were saying, out of the few TRUs that were built, it means stop everything, then confirm that all of them, we are putting them in environmentally compliant areas. And then it caused us delay. What's the reason was that we had bigger floods even on that day in May 2022, which caused the areas to be abnormally wet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that feedback. Now we are going to go to some of these sites where people are being housed temporarily. There's some questions I could hear on my right-hand side. There was these members were saying, but yeah, you're moving them from here to there. You're not solving their problem. But we'll deal with that, honorable members, when we are there. You have correctly reflected on the extent, and you know, Pluma, we ask, why are you building in areas that is not suitable or where the land use issues has not been solved? And I think that is part of your problem that you are having. So we must also be mindful of that. I heard in the replies that was given about the specific challenges also that's being experienced in terms of mitigation. Now there's a committee in Parliament, Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, that's doing public hearings at the moment for South Africa to have its own climate change legislation. And one emphasis is mitigation, because it's going to rain again. It's going to rain again, and if we don't speedily attend to unblocking and removing waste management also came up. In certain instances, you find even old mattresses being thrown into those canals or rivers that further blocks. But we also do find, like we did in Gauteng, in Mosquito Valley, where there is poor maintenance, just general maintenance is not taking place, and you have these reeds and bamboo growing and clogging up the river system. So it's predictable. That can be done, and with all the tasks and functions that municipalities have, those are things that can be done on a continuous basis, part of an EPWP program that also provides jobs to our communities in clearing those areas, so that when the rain comes, there is a natural open flow to where the water must be going to and not into people's houses and washing away. When we were driving here, honorable members, I don't know the main road that we use, but on the left-hand side, I looked up on my left-hand side and I can see literally hundreds of structures going up on a very steep slope. That's your next problem that you are going to have, right? That's your next, because it's quite predictable. If it rains hard, Honorable Dodovu, the water must run down. Now you're sitting there with structures that has been built, there's people living there, and it is another disaster in the making. So while we deal with the existing disasters, we must also look as to the future disasters that will occur, and not wait until people die and their livelihoods are destroyed before we go, because then we're playing catch up and we won't be able to catch up. And that's where adaptation and mitigation comes in. And our communities must be engaged to move. Now, the last one, because this is something that is quite topical at the moment. Speaker, you refer to business forums that are making things difficult. Who are these business forums? And you see, a business forum can mean something to certain people, and to other people it means something else. But what exactly are we talking about? Because it's not only here in Chukweni, in KZN, we hear about business forums. But business forums it has a different complexion, it changes. Somebody also referred to the water tankers, and they're setting up their own industry. You know, because if you have a permanent solution, you won't need those water tankers anymore. And the longer they stay, the more profitable it becomes to them. So it's not in their interest for the problem to be solved. But I just want to hear, I don't want to assume, Honorable Speaker, the business forums that's being referred to. What is it that we are referring to?
Yes, I know this business forum because we do meet with them. We know them. But to answer your questions, these are criminals. These are not business people. They are criminals because there's a proper way to do business with the city. If you're a business person, then if we experience some challenges, we do have the team from the municipality that assist small emerging business people. Then there's evidence where those people have been supported by the city and now they are grown and they are benefiting. But a person who don't want to subject himself or herself in the program, you see the person by waiting for you to be awarded a contract or a tender. Then once you are introduced on site, he will come to you not to engage but with firearm. Intimidating you, demanding 30%. That's why I'm saying those are criminals. Mainly in our city, we're dealing with criminals who call themselves business forum, but we know them, we do engage them, they know our stance, we are dealing with them with law enforcement agencies. Unfortunately, we have not won that battle, but we are converting them. Thank you very much.
Oh, so you're talking about the construction mafia? That's what you're talking about. I didn't want to assume, because we have it where in my constituency, in Nelson Mandela, you have it in the Western Cape, and they are very powerful people. They come and they can stop a approved project, and they don't take kindly to being said no to. They take criminal approaches in dealing with people, including killing people if they can't get their way. And that is something I think that the government, the president has spoken about it, the Minister of Police yesterday, just last night, was talking about it again. So it's a reality that is there. It's good to engage them, right? But at a certain point, see, government must have authority. At a certain point, engagement must stop. And it is known people that is doing these type of things, and they must be dealt with. The full might of the law must be deployed to deal with them. So thank you very much. There were specific issues that some of the members raised. Yes. Very specific issues. Now, what I'm going to request is, Honorable Mkalipi, Honorable Soma, and so on, is that the secretariat that is supporting the committee must compile a list of those specific issues. Some of them don't require money, really, it's just effort. And that must be given over to the province and the city, because we're coming back here again anyway to do a follow-up visit. And things that can be done immediately, that doesn't require a tender to be awarded, supply chain management process. You know, we become very technical, very westernized in dealing with our people. We come across as being very liberal, tender, scoping of the work. And our people don't want that. They want immediate assistance. And there where the tools exist to immediately unblock and deal with it. Right? I like an approach where I hear, no, you know, the municipality have its own workers, own laborers who can be sent there. We don't need to tender out everything, because there's existing people working there who can go and do that on behalf of the municipality, because it's within their jurisdiction. There's nothing special, no special permission is required. There's existing budgets. So that can be dealt with, those specific matters, the secretariat will give it to the province and to the city, so that you can respond to that immediately. That can be done. And then at least our people will see that their plight is being taken serious. And we as a portfolio committee also want to see that we are being taken serious, including the approach that was given earlier on in terms of dealing with the issue in Port Shepstone and where prioritization was done and who falls in where. No, it's very technical stuff that is there. But the reality is, the mayor told me this morning, this is the rainy season. And later in the year, it's another rainy season. So it's going to rain again. And with climate change, some of these things is very difficult to predict. And the severity thereof impact on our people, and it destroys infrastructure. So we will now adjourn for lunch. And thank you to Mgeni. Mgeni water. You know, we don't always get such a warm welcome. Thank you very much. And also for the facility that has been secured that can accommodate everyone, and also for providing us with the necessary sustenance so that we can be ready this afternoon to go and do those site visits that are there. So thank you very much for the contribution that you have made. Thank you. We appreciate that. Right? We will now adjourn on the order. We will now adjourn, honorable members, for lunch, and thereafter the secretariat will tell us it is now it's 2 o'clock. So let's take half an hour for lunch, and then at 2:30 we'll go to the site visits. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the officials also that attended, the speaker, the deputy mayor, and all the support that they've received. Thank you.